Hello everybody, it's Real Shade here from Project Lab. Once again, we're, a little bit late. We had hiccups yesterday, technical issues, but we're here today to supply you with some lovely reviews of a Christmas classic, It's a Wonderful Life. And isn't it a wonderful life having myself here, Jamie, amateur movie buff, critic, reviewer, Darren, world-renowned movie star, hidden in the box at the bottom left-hand side, and Derry, our fantastic resident artist. Look at the phantasmic picture that's going to be produced tonight in front of your eyes. It's all live. Today we're talking about It's a Wonderful Life. And last week we did tell you to have a look at it yourself. In preparation, it is one of the best Christmas films around. As you'll probably notice, last week I did say, don't you dare watch the coloured version, because the coloured version sucks. But then I thought, our background is black and white, and with a black and white film in the middle, I got the coloured version, and this is simply because of it's a talking point, okay? Now we can compare. We can all objectively... I've never seen the coloured version either. It's the only one that I had to hand. So let's have a chat about it. And
is there a difference?
There you go. There's a difference. There's a difference. Like
in the story, in the edit, is there a difference? Okay.
No. There's no difference in edit. It's all... The best thing about this, like, it's technically a marvel. It's a, done reel by reel, basically, all coloured in and everything. It's one of those amazing pictures. But anyway... You'll see as we go along that it does make a difference to the way that the movie is viewed. But, comment away. We love to hear your feedback. We're on YouTube. We're on Twitch today. We'll be having each act. And we're doing something a little bit different this week. We'll be putting up at the top, kind of middle left-hand side, the act that we're talking about. And that'll move us along. And feel free to contribute. We want to hear what you have to say. And maybe movie suggestions. This week it's my pick. So, It's a Wonderful Life. I'll read a little bit here from IMDb. It's always a great inspiration. They give us a little bit more than last time than The Craft. So, I'll give just a little starting of it. Because they basically tell the movie in this. George Bailey has spent his entire life giving himself to the people of Bedford Falls. He has always longed to travel, but never had the opportunity in order to prevent Rich Skinflint... That's a cool word. Skinflint, Mr. Potter, from taking over the entire town. And then there's a lot more. Jimmy Stewart plays George Bailey. Donna Reed is Mary Hatch. Lionel Barrymore is Mr. Potter, who I think was like a perfect evil capitalist in this film. We have Thomas Mitchell as Uncle Billy, who is clearly a bit nuts. And then we have Henry Travers as Clarence, who is fantastic. So, Let's get into maybe just a quick impression about the movie, okay? Little subject. I picked this movie because it's obviously Christmas time, and Jimmy Stewart is a great actor. I believe, Darren, you've never seen a movie with Jimmy Stewart in it before, no?
No, I definitely have seen... I've definitely seen bits of movies he's been in. I've never seen a full movie, I don't think. Like years ago, my dad would be into these movies. My dad would kill me if I told him I never watched this movie before. Like, he'd kill me stone dead. But, like, I've seen... like, my mom's favourite movie is Rear Window with Jimmy Stewart. Or James Stewart, the latest person. James. But, like... Yeah, James Stewart, yeah. To the classy guy. But, man, what an actor. Like...
What did you think of this film in terms of it being a Christmas film? You said before we started streaming that it doesn't, on the outset, it doesn't seem like one.
You know what? Just from hearing people talk about this movie, I knew it was a Christmas movie. But when I watched it, like the first hour and a half, I wouldn't have thought it was a Christmas movie. Like I just thought it was a movie about like, can we just say, poor George Bailey? Jesus, man, I feel so sorry for that. From when he's a child and he gets like slapped in the ear, I was like nearly cried a lump in my throat when he got slapped. I was, geez, that poor child. But I I actually want to watch more movies with Jimmy Stewart. Like I'm not even saying it now. I really, really want to watch more movies with him, and I'm actually going to watch Rear Window tonight. Um, just it's like it kills me that I can't think of an actor nowadays that would make me want to watch all these movies like
Exactly,
that.
exactly, and it's a kind of he's a one of a kind actor. He's like a classical
Oh, he is.
actor, and you should read about him in the military in World War II. He's fantastic.
I
Derry,
did.
Derry, what in your opinion? Did you watch this with your kids?
I did not. I watched
Okay,
this alone, and I'm glad I did because I was a blubbering mess.
did you do like the sobbing?
Yeah,
Yeah,
it
yeah.
was destroyed. I saw it before, but I probably hadn't seen it in about, oh God, 15 years probably.
Mm-hmm,
It
mm-hmm.
hit different this time, definitely. I think it actually says a lot about mental health, which is a big thing for 70 odd years ago. So I
Yeah,
think like Darren was saying, it didn't really hit you as a Christmas movie. I think it's a movie that is relevant all year round and even 70 years later.
I agree. I totally agree. Yeah.
And I think that what we were speaking about last week about that feeling of Christmas. Um, it from the out. If you're kind of looking at the film from the outside, it really doesn't have a Christmassy feel. There's very little Christmas in this.
Yeah.
Yet it gives the feeling of Christmas all the time. It ends on one of those big bangs.
Yeah,
So
it's the classic thing of having the Christmas spirit fixes everything sort of
Mm.
coming out. Yeah.
yes, and there's a few nice, cool history bits that we'll have a chat about at the end of it. If anybody knows about this historically, feel free to chime in.
Yeah.
But let's start with the Act 1. Ba-bum! Act
Dum,
1.
dum,
And for
dum.
all of the viewers at home, there's a little graphic up at the top left-hand side that Derry designed. It's gorgeous. Look, Act 1. So, Act 1. So, as we see, a lovely title screen. The title screen. One of my favourites. We see...
It's like
Where I come in every week and
isn't
start
it?
giving out.
I kind of have a thing for title screens, They do something for me.
I was expecting, because it being an old movie, I was expecting a lot longer, so I was surprised by this.
Yeah, it's not like a Cleopatra one where it goes on and on. Like the title screen, it's actually called it like an overture, like the overture at the start, and it goes on for the length of like a 5-minute song, and then you're into the movie. You're like, oh, everybody's coming into that's when everybody's coming into the theater. Everybody
Yeah.
should be kind of sat down by now,
Yeah,
and
yeah.
it's a long
But
movie.
it kind of reminded me of an animated movie. So by the end, when they were pulling, whoever was pulling these pages back, I expected to open to
So
like a
lovely.
Walt Disney coloring book, like a Mickey Mouse book on. I mean, I expected it to be kind of like that.
Well, that's a cool thing about it. It gives that surreal story told
Yeah,
atmosphere straight away at the start. And that's the kind of cool thing about Christmas. Is that it has that magical feel, and maybe we can call it like a Disney feel, basically. Um,
yeah.
so we start off with a lovely credit roll, and then the opening shot to Bedford Falls. Um,
Red balls.
we see it goes up and straight up into the I think
The
there's
atmosphere.
a praying for George. So we actually see like around the town. We have some lovely shots. This is why I kind of like maybe illustrating from the colored version, because the galaxies in this look proper cool.
Yeah,
It's a very unusual start to a movie. It gets you set up for it being an old style. This is a classic Christmas tale, and at this time, really, the introduction of film. This film was done in 1946, so literally the year after World War II had ended. And Jimmy Stewart was in the Air Corps. So he pretty much had just come back from World War II and did this film that was a very depressing film, and really, like
yeah,
you said, about mental health. What a perfect time to do it after a massive war. Financial crashes, really finances in general at the time were a major discussion. So
yeah,
it feels at the start, it kind of brings you, okay, we're into this unrealistic version of the world. Society has already been broken down after a massive world war, and then we're into this holly jolly street of gorgeous buildings with snow around, and then straight up, like you said, Darren, into the atmosphere. What? Like, you haven't seen this before, Darren. So was that a little bit of an unexpected, like, why are we in the galaxy? Why is there people talking?
Forever I've seen stills of this movie, and I've seen tiny little bits of it. Like, you see him, you know, the whole part he's pulling on the moon, you know, he's talking to her, and it's all like he's running. The famous scene where he's running through the snow. And when I saw this happening, I didn't know this is the same movie. I was like,
the galaxy is like.
Yeah, you know, when like everything I've seen of the movie is really Christmassy, and, you know, really like it old. Because what's weird is, and now I'm only thinking of it, everything I've ever seen of this movie, bar when I watched it, was in black and white. So everything I've seen was black and white, and I never copped the fact that it was a color I was watching. Jesus, I'm really colorblind.
Did you see the color version, or like when we actually?
I never watched the black and white version. But
okay.
When it went up into the sky and things started talking, I was like, what the fuck is happening? This is definitely not It's a Wonderful Life. But then when he started talking, then when it came down to George Bailey as a child, I was like, oh, it is. Right. What? And do you know what I did more than that? It really intrigued me to watch it. Really intrigued me.
That's what it's a cool concept. And you know what the whole entire movie reminds me of? A Twilight Zone episode.
Yeah.
You know, if you've ever seen the old with Rod Steiner, I think Rod Steiner, yeah. Correct me if I'm wrong. Maybe.
You know,
but anyway,
it sounds.
So he's actually a guy that came back from the war and went in to create the Twilight Zone because he had like PTSD. The only way that he could actually explain or work through those mental blocks that he was having is to go through this avenue of weird and crazy things that could possibly happen out there in the universe, or that what if concept effectively. And I feel like this film kind of went that way of having what if it doesn't even feel Christian. It does, like, they speak a lot of Christianity throughout the whole entire film, but this isn't God. This is like a galaxy guy called Joseph, and then there's another, I can't remember the name of the other galaxy, but it's like two people talking to each other.
Clarence is his guardian. Is Clarence his guardian?
Clarence
angel?
is the guardian agent.
Yeah.
So like, are these angels talking to each other or what? Like, they again, it's just nicely set up in so far as it's.
I think what Joseph and your man are talking about. Clarence, like, send him down. He's going to try and win his wings. Trying to win his wings. Like, you know, I don't get that.
Well, he had to earn his wings. He earns them. Like, I think that's kind of a common trope. I don't know, in terms of in angels. Earning their wings effectively, because that's how pilots, they earn their wings, you know, that kind of way.
Okay. I just agree with you.
What's that?
I wanted to start that kind of idea
to earn your wings.
Yeah. Historically. Digressing.
Yeah. Well, again, it's something, you know, it's a common saying, so it makes sense. I don't know if it started with pilots or angels, but hey, well, angels are older, so they'd probably get in there quicker. But this is the kind of setup for, okay, Clarence, like, effectively the movie has already started. We're already in current time, and this is when George is going through his anguish. But to catch the viewer up to speed, as well as Clarence, the guardian angel, we see a kind of a flashback of George's life, and that's actually, for a good part of it, that, well, it's a fantastically written, it's fantastically done, and it reminds me a lot of if you've ever seen Citizen Kane. You know, just a nicer version of Citizen Kane. So you know, it's a nice setup because it basically puts us in the shoes of Clarence. You know, it kind of makes us empathize with this character that we've never seen before, and the full, probably, I don't know, I haven't it written down here, but the full thing is basically, you know, the full act of the film, first act of the film, is building up a character, explaining this character. It actually has no real connection to the main story other than this character is really empathetic, and actions have massive consequences. Reminds like a Bethesda game. If it was like, hey, this is the new Skyrim, you play as George Bailey, and he has to make some really tough decisions.
No, just, you know, from the very first time you see him, because obviously after you see it goes right into from whatever heaven or whatever up in the atmosphere, it goes right into him as a child, and the first thing you see him doing is saving his brother, and like, immediately after he saves him, he's like, George lost his hearing in one ear. I'm like, Jesus Christ, lads. And then he's like, obviously saving your man from he helps out his boss. But I love all the kid actors in this, man. The two girls on the stools are brilliant as well.
Well,
Dude,
the guy
she's
that
so
plays
sassy.
George is some handsome looking child. Those eyebrows. That's an acting child right there. If you had like a picture or a definition of the actor child, it's like this guy, he looks like manlier, tougher than I do. But I think they got some really good actors for this. Like the
Exactly
female,
the
like the little girl actors in it are brilliant as well.
Brilliant.
You like every boy. What's wrong with that?
What's wrong with that? Oh my god, they're the best. But this is
that was another thing, is it's another kind of modernish attitude.
Yeah,
It's like, like, you know, it wasn't the girls have to be prim and proper and everything. It was just like, so this is life.
You will find a lot of times, because my interest kind of lies in films in the early 20th century. You will find a lot of times, if you watch things like the Marx Brothers and everything, their sensibility wasn't that strict.
Yeah.
And especially because this is America. This isn't British. You know,
Yes,
this isn't, this is New York. Well, even European. You look at the Italians and the French and the Spanish at this time, they were pretty racy. You know, but ultimately, it's America. So, you know, like this was the time when on film you couldn't have two people sleeping in the same bed together. So even in shots of them in their own bedroom, you would have to have two single beds.
Yeah.
You know, it's not even you couldn't even imply the fact that they were sleeping together as a married couple. And still in America that was happening. But yeah, like you said, their idea of liberty and social differences is a lot more easier to spot in their films than it is like English films at the time.
Yeah, totally.
You know, and this is like a really American film though, if you think about it. Like they're all sleighing on Christmas, and then this is where George effectively. Well, that's it. It's the American. Actually, we'll come to this. This was a very controversial movie at the time. And just think about what was happening politically. I'll just put it that way. So we move on, and we see George basically saving. Actually, I should say by this stage that Clarence is told that George is, like, he's asking why he's going to be looking after George. And it's explained to him that he throws away God's greatest gift, which is obviously his life. So this is a big topic that, like, it's straight away we're launching into a big topic, and we're taught about it in this fantasy way, but fantastical way. You know, at the time, a lot of people still believed in religion and were God-fearing, let's say. So this is kind of like a big topic, suicide, framed in this biblical sense, and then you throw Christmas in there. You know, and I think Jimmy Stewart is probably one of the only actors that could actually pull this off really well, to have those two dynamics.
Yeah,
yep.
But he's very, like, he comes off as a really sympathetic, because I watched interviews with him since, and like even when he got older, and he's like a really sympathetic guy. He seems like a really, obviously I didn't know him, but he seems like a really genuine guy. When he talks, and man, I've watched a lot of interviews with him recently, and I'm kind of just getting a little bit obsessed by him. I liked him so much in the movie.
He writes he actually writes a poem about his horse, I believe. Is it his horse? What? Look it up. And it's so sad. He's a very sad person.
See, like, even what you just say, he wrote a poem about a horse. You know, it'll not be called My Lovely Horse.
My lovely, lovely. Oh, will that get us strucken? Is that a DMCA strike? My lovely, lovely, lovely horse. So
no, he's just like, I rarely say things are perfectly cast, but even though I've only watched this movie recently, this is perfectly cast.
If you think about this film, though, how does it grip you emotionally with this character that you empathize with? He is a good soul, and at the end of it, he's literally upending. He's like, imagine like a bad dad. He becomes that kind of a character by the end of it. You know, he's little bits of tantrums. Like, he's a bit of a tantrum later on, and Mary is just like trying to cheer him up, and he's a bit of an asshole. Like he's an absolute bit of an asshole. So he's a complex character that you want to succeed regardless of these kind of downfalls. But at the start, it's setting you up for this nice little bit that he saves his brother. So they're sledding down this hill. His brother sleds down and slides past and goes, "Help!" And then Dutch kind of crushes in beneath the ice and is at threat of basically freezing to death. And this is where George jumps in to save him, because, you know, that's George. And it's like the flashbacks are basically all of these events in time where George has done something honorable or moral.
Yeah.
I think you really get the sense that he's just a really good kid throughout. And you see, especially with his encounter in the pharmacy, you're just like, that poor kid. Immediately your heart goes out to him because you know deep down he's just so kind and thoughtful.
That's a fantastic story.
Right from the beginning.
But even good acting, like when the line that got me is when he said, when your man slapped him 8 times and he said, "Please don't hit me on my bad ear again." I was like, oh my God. I was like, geez.
I know you're upset. Like, he forgave him straight away. And I'm like,
wow. Even the fucking blood in his ear. Like the blood driving down his ear, and I was like, that's like fucking, I feel like it's very hard to get sympathy that quickly out of a character. Holy shit, like that was fucking, my heart went out that a child.
Well, that's the thing, and it's even before that we see that George is a kind of a really logical character. The fact that he goes to work, he's really happy at work, and then his boss comes out and is a complete asshole to him. He's like, "Shut up, I don't pay you to be a canary." We do get an introduction to like the promiscuous one, let's say, of the town at the time, and then Mary, which is like George's love interest throughout the film, and we see that he's kind of serving up ice cream. He works in kind of a drugstore, but at the time they serve Coca-Cola and ice cream and everything. I like the kid characters in it. I think the kid characters actually make it really good. And they feel adult as well. You know, they have that kind of...
sitting on the bar stools, chilling out, being sassy.
Yeah. We see the note that the drugstore owner, or George's boss effectively, he's lost his son. He's died of, I think, pneumonia. And that's why the drugstore owner is
being a dick.
Being a bit of a sad bastard. What I like about it is, so we get to the point where we see the shop owner filling the tablets, like filling an order of tablets basically for a customer or whatever the case is, and George sees that he's filling it with poison instead of it being anything else. That was a bit cool. I like that bit where it's like, okay, where the character is presented with a dilemma. How is he going to fix this one? What would you have done in that position?
Oh Jesus! Are you asking me? Or...
I'm asking you, Darren.
God, man, depends how much I like the person.
Who are you delivering it to, huh? So in that,
I thought it was interesting that he went straight to his dad.
Yeah,
this is cool. So we see we actually see a little sign that says, "Ask Dad, he knows."
Oh yeah.
Did you notice that?
Yeah.
Yeah. Sorry. Yeah. Very good.
So he's like,
is that Clarence like helping him out and showing him the way, or what do you think?
Well, technically this is beforehand. The guy kind of looks a little bit like Clarence, come to think of it. But
uncle.
His uncle. Yeah, his crazy uncle with all his squirrel friends.
Yeah.
So, but the drugstore owner basically, he tells George to get out and deliver the order, and George has this kind of moment of conscience. That's what I'm talking about. Conscience.
Emotion
So,
of consciousness. No. Let's go with what you said.
conscience. He runs to his dad's, who we find out, and it's a cool introduction, that his dad is the owner of basically a credit union, or what we would call a credit union. It's like a building society. Effectively, it gives loans out to everybody in the town. It's old school. He's having an argument with Mr. Potter, and Mr. Potter is a complete asshole, and he's like the atypical capitalist in the town. He wears like the little pork pie hat with the the little vest and everything, and we see that his dad is obviously a nice person as well.
His dad, what do you call his dad? You're the biggest man in town. I'm like, no, you're not.
I'm sure there's people bigger than you.
I get what he's saying. I get it. But your man is like a complete caricature of a total capitalist. Your man is like, he reminds me, he should have been up in the rafters, like the man in the Muppets, those two guys.
So, what I like about this point, so we've already gotten to the point where we're kind of introduced to, we've gotten a good understanding of George, and there is a cool part in it where he's serving the ice cream, and Mary asks for some vanilla ice cream or whatever, and he goes, what about coconut and whatever, and she's like, coconut? It's like, yeah, it comes from really far away, and he starts talking about these places, Fiji, and whatever. It reminded me of The Truman Show. This film reminded me of The Truman Show in a lot of ways. The fact that he wanted to leave, he couldn't leave, people were trying to stop him from actually going. He literally never leaves the town, and he's stuck there the whole entire time. And I think that link between Fiji, I was like, were the makers of Truman Show also watching this and kind of going, what if he was trapped there? So it's like that Twilight Zone again.
You're going to end up where you're going to end up, and that's just the way things work out. And no matter what, like what you just said, no matter what happened to him, like he was obviously supposed to leave for college. He got delayed going to college in the first place, then he got straight away. Like everything was intervening from getting him to where he wanted to go. But where he obviously where he ended up is where he was supposed to end up. Well, and now the review's over. Thank you.
You know what it actually reminds me of is The Nightmare Before Christmas. In that way, the grass is always greener.
Yeah.
He wanted to be out there. He struggled as much as he possibly could. He felt like there was like something missing inside of him, and then he actually found that he staying in his small little town, being a small little what was like credit union owner, building society owner. Yeah, and I think it's a nice story. I think it's presented really nicely in this, but it's still one of those films where you think, it's not a story of adventure and go get him, and you have more potential than just this crappy place that you're living in. It's like, resist all you want. It doesn't matter. You're going to be stuck here anyway. And who doesn't feel like that?
Nowadays doesn't have. It has an actual story.
It has an actual point to make.
Yeah.
And a lot of films now don't have a lot of points to make, and if they do,
CGI, dude. It was amazing to see something without CGI for once. It was so good to see.
There is a bit of practical effects in this. I don't know. Did you spot that, Darren?
Is that the planet?
No, because that's not. That's technically, that's practical effects, but that's obviously done with like a black sheet, and they've poked holes through it, and then, and again, it's in black and white. It doesn't need to be anything, and they've just carved out like a galaxy.
Is when they're pulling back at the start from the house. Is the house all CGI? Is that what you're talking about?
No, it's not CGI.
I do remember.
It's a practical effect.
CGI, not CGI.
I will get to it anyway. It's done very well. It's a camera trick. If you want to be, it's a special effect.
I can't think of it.
It's later in the movie. So we get an introduction to the main villain of the story, which is Mr. Potter. Excuse yourself, spreading the goof. So we get our introduction to the villain, and I found it funny that like George is 10 years old in this, and then suddenly Mr. Potter doesn't really look that old. Doesn't look that old when
He's older.
like George is like what 40 years of age.
Yeah.
And Mr. Potter looks just as old, and he's still in a crappy little wheelchair.
Like no one ages in this movie, bar James George.
Well, actually, yeah.
Well, like even like no, Mr. Potter and your man. What's his name? What's his name? Oh my God, the guy he worked for, Grover.
Who?
Is it Grover?
Who?
The pharmacy guy.
Oh yeah, I can't remember the main name of the guy. Yeah, anyway, the pharmacy owner guy, the drugstore owner.
He looked ancient at start of it, and then like later on, he's still the fucking same age. I'm like,
yeah. So,
what's going on?
Maybe it's like something in the Matrix. Like maybe George is stuck in the Matrix. Everybody else, like his dad dies, his mother still looks as old as she always has. Yeah. So trippy Matrix. We get the fact that George kind of relies on his father effectively, and he relies on that family with influence. And even though his dad doesn't give him the correct answer, he still knows essentially what to do. He's given him a general kind of, don't worry, everything will be fine, and you can take care of yourself, and go get him, sort of whatever. And the son then goes back to the drugstore owner and basically tells him that, by the way, that you fill those prescriptions with like fucking cyanide or whatever, like
poison, yeah,
with poison.
But you remember the drugstore owner's son died, didn't he? That's why he's
he dies. He dies of pneumonia. Mm-hmm. Like that's this is the thing. It adds cool context to it by this stage that George sees the note, that his son has died from pneumonia, and he goes back to check on him, and this is where he sees him fill him the wrong prescription with poison. So he's obviously has a heart at this point. He cares about his boss's well-being, and then his boss, when he comes back to reveal that he hasn't delivered it because the boss is on the phone and he's like, I haven't gotten my prescription yet from the other guy, and the boss is like, it'll be along soon. He's obviously pissed drunk, and then he decides to absolutely slap George at the side of the head, gives him some clattering, blood streaming down his ear. I was like, holy shit, dude, what the fuck did you do? He basically broke his eardrum. Again. Lovely little child abuse. Why not around this time of year?
But that's when he says to your man, please don't hit me in my bad ear. And I'm like, that's fucking so sad. It's
a sad one, isn't it?
He doesn't get... Yeah, but he doesn't get bet up at home, clearly, because his dad is a nice guy. You know what I mean? So, like, the fact that his boss is like, this was just a common thing that your boss used to beat the fucking shit out of you.
No, but I don't think it's a common thing, to be honest with you, because George has gone into work and he's like whistling and he's having a good time and he feels relaxed. This feels like an odd situation for George to be in, that kind of way. He doesn't seem like he's in a bad background. Like, for all intents and purposes, the town loves George and it knows him basically by the end. Hey, there's George. So I think this is, again, you just see the empathy. He's realized that his boss's son has died tragically, and what is it? Maybe World War One? Is it like one of those kind of things? I think he's died in World War One of pneumonia.
Yeah, World War One.
And what? George is like, 10, 11, maybe 12 at this point, and he has the sense of responsibility to do the right thing, even though he knows he doesn't know the full answer. He goes to his dad, he actually goes back to the owner, and like you said, Darren, he's like, please don't hit me. At least, basically, if you're going to hit me, don't hit me in the sore ear. Hit me down in the chest.
I know why you're doing this.
Exactly.
And I think from that point on, you're sold with this kid. Like you're yeah.
I've been rooting for him.
Rootin', tootin', Jimmy Stootin'. So, I love it. Straight away, we're kind of gone into not knowing anything about this random child, to 2 scenes where he's basically given up. He doesn't think about himself once at all in any of these, except for his little bit of ambition that he wants to travel. And that's the kind of running thread throughout the movie. And you see the character and his ambition, and he just never gets to fulfill it at all. He gets so many chances to do so, and yet he gets stopped at every opportunity because the other thing we saw at the start of the movie, because he is like, straight away we see that George is kind of like, he's lost hearing in one of his ears by saving his brother. He's basically gotten beaten around by not volunteering, not giving poison to one of the customers and killing them.
It's his sense of responsibility that actually holds him back.
But that's what responsibility really is. It's about doing something not because you want to do it, but because it's the right thing to do.
Yeah.
What you're basically saying, Jamie, is with great power comes great responsibility.
And that's the point. That's really the point of that, isn't it? Spider-Man becomes Spider-Man, not because he wants to be a popular, kick-ass, bully skater dude. He does it because it's the right thing to do. Except for in the third one, where I hope he dies. So, we even get to the point where we see George wanting to give up his own life, basically, by the end of it, to give a positive effect to somebody else. So on and on and on. There's always a trade-off, and George, regardless of what is happening to him, will always trade off even his life, to the benefit of somebody else. Yeah. Love it. We're straight in then to the next bit, where George is popping in to buy a suitcase. And this is where we get a cool little effect where they go, okay, pause it here. And then we get the narration voices over by the angels. It's like, okay, this is the guy that you need to tail effectively. And this is George Bailey. And he's talking about a big, massive suitcase. He's like, I want to go traveling and I want one of those suitcases this size. It's a great introduction into his rapport with the town.
Yeah.
He's buying a suitcase from just this random shop, and the shopkeep owner knows him. He is hiding a present from his old boss with his name on the suitcase for him to go off traveling. That's just explains it. Like, you don't need to go a massive leap of faith from realizing that he basically stayed the same way from when he was younger all the way up until now. Always a selfless act is George, and now you're like thinking, okay, brilliant, he's gonna do it, he's gonna get his wish. At this time I think they're trying to portray him as like a 20-year-old kind of, he's just finished college or whatever, he's gone off to university.
I thought I dropped there. What happened?
Nothing.
Oh, okay. Sorry.
And that was a lead on from somebody else.
Sorry. I think he just finished school or something, wasn't it? And he was about to be going to college, because I think that's a later storyline that he can't go.
No, but what I'm saying is that he looks about 45 in this, and he's trying to portray like a 20-year-old, like just finished college.
Oh yeah. I did wonder if they aged him down, and
And in fairness, they actually do age him up in this.
Yeah,
they do.
It's very good.
So they do kind of nice, cool makeup effects effectively on it. It's really good. We then have George thanking his previous boss for giving him the suitcase, and going back and doing that thing with the lighter, with that snap lighter thing. It's one of those Make-A-Wish clickers, effectively, with the flame on it.
What does he say? He would be a millionaire or something, is it?
Wish for
hot damn. So again, that's kind of like showing you that this character has a continuous streak throughout the whole entire core of his life. He's basically this fanciful dreamer of a character, and it doesn't need that much explanation. You know, guess how much we're into the film? Let's say 9 minutes into the film.
And we know exactly who he is.
And also that it's a fun film. Well, is it? Is it a fun film? That's the thing. It's a great setup. What could possibly go wrong for George? He's just too fun-loving.
Yeah. Poor George.
We then get a part where he's like, okay, I need a taxi. I'm going on the next train out. And then we see the bit of a slutty one coming around trying to talk up all the guys. Hey, George. Oh, hey. And what are the names of the cop and the taxi driver?
Oh, Bert and Ernie.
Bert and Ernie. That's where they got it from.
I got so confused. I got so excited over that.
I never got.
Hey, Bert.
Hey, Bert, Ernie. Yeah, so Bert and Ernie. So again, it's that's where the names from the Sesame Street thing came from.
Didn't know that.
Bert and Ernie. There you go. That's a little bit of filmography knowledge for you there. So these two guys that are on screen at the moment.
Are you just guessing?
No, that is true. That is true. I know things about this film. I know things about this film. George is wanted to get a taxi to go back to his house to have one last meal, effectively. He's planning a trip away, needs to get on the next train out of here, and his dad, as you see, wants to convince him to stay in the old family business. The brother, you get to see, is basically a dirty rascal and starts chasing around the maid. Is she a maid? Is she
he slaps her in the ass, but took out like the slap sound.
Damn right.
Oh, brilliant.
I love this whole rapport that the whole family had together.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Just as actors, I thought this whole dynamic that they had going on was fantastic. It was so smooth. It flowed so well. It was like they were a real family. They knew each other forever. It was brilliant.
And it was a great... It felt really family orientated as well.
And the way they're talking over each other and they're actually eating.
Yes, right? Sometimes you see them like get a spoon up to their mouths and start like, oh no, another conversation.
Yeah, talking with their mouth full, and it just felt normal.
And then like what's she called? Anna was the maid.
The maid. I don't know. Is it a servant? What do you call it now?
But I love the fact she was
the
really
live-in maid.
I didn't expect it. I thought her to be like, yes ma'am, but she was like she was part of the family.
Hey,
totally
have you ever see? This is a really good example of misinterpretation of what servants at that time. You even watch Gone with the Wind, which is genuinely based in the South with genuine slaves, and even the black maids in that are given sass. Like they are a big character. Actually, the first black person even to win an Oscar was Hattie something. Forgot her last name. Hattie Davis, I believe. Maybe that's Hattie. Yeah. But what I'm saying is that like any film that I basically Hattie McDaniel, that's it, just to get that right. But anytime there's like I've ever seen these like black maids in it, they're always like sassy. Like in this, there's a really cool comedy scene where the dad and George are trying to have a chat, and George is basically like, why don't you pull up a seat and join in on the conversation? It's like, I don't want it. It's boring anyway. It just walks out.
And at the end, it's like, did you catch all of that? I heard.
Yeah, she's at the other side of the door. So it's cool. I love it. It's a cool little dynamic that all of these characters have. There's literally not a bad bone in all of their body. Even the father understands his role in the town. They obviously live in this big nice house, yet he understands his responsibility to provide houses for people at reasonable rates, instead of allowing them or having them in the slums that Mr. Potter, the banker, is made for him. So the way that the town is situated is that Mr. Potter has built all these crappy little rental apartments, and then the Baileys have set up a system for people to actually get into houses, even though they technically can't afford it here and there sometimes. But that's...
What I don't understand is, what is Potter's hold over the Baileys? Why does he have such a sway in the bonds? Is it?
Because he's a member of the board. He's actually a member of the board on the building society.
Oh, okay. So he's not actually like an owner or a investor.
No, but he owns shares. I think he owns like a 45%, and that is important later on. So you're already seeing the bad consequences of capitalism, basically. You have this nice person who's trying to do nice things for the town, and then you see this capitalist in a wheelchair stealing people's livelihoods just to make money.
Mm-hmm. Sound familiar?
Sound familiar. So we get already an we already get an introduction to the brother going off to it's like the graduation ball or something like that.
Yeah. It's no, it's you're right. It's graduation ball.
Yeah, so they're like, the way that it's working is that George Bailey is wanting to go to university. His brother is graduating. And there's only enough money, the family only have enough money to send George to go to university. They don't have enough money to send his brother to go there. So the brother is meant to take over the business.
Yeah, exactly. His brother's supposed to take over the building. So George already has like a system in place for them all to go. So he's even...
Exactly. So
George
is just like, but no, let's not change the plan here. I understand that you want me to take over. It's like, look, he's been working there basically the same amount of time that I was working there when I started, even older than when I started. And he's like, yeah, but you were born old. You were born old, George.
Great line.
Dad.
Great line.
So it's, again, he's like born with this responsibility over and over again. His brother, the responsibility of saving someone's life over and over again. And George knows that that's what he should be doing effectively. George knows that this is going away and fulfilling, like you can actually feel the guilt. And this is what I love about an actor of this caliber, is that if you can actually write something really good, so many films have been lost and failed because the actor couldn't portray emotions well enough for the audience to read them. And you, huh?
What?
Who are you talking about?
Spider-Man.
Spider-Man? Tobey Maguire?
Hey,
Kirsten Stewart syndrome. He's Kirsten Stewart syndrome. Yeah. But that's what I'm saying. Fair enough. I'll give it to you. It's like he's no Jimmy Stewart. But that's... Jimmy Stewart could convey the emotion of being in that situation so well that you hung on his every word. And you could feel the guilt in his voice when he was like, but I have all this plan. I have the tickets. I'm gone. Goodbye. Please stop this. Don't try and convince me to stay, Dad.
And that's a very good point, actually, of hanging on his every word, because normally when I'm watching a movie, I'm like, I'd be sketching or just messing around, Potter, and doing bits and like, fidgeting or whatever.
With
I
your
paid
fidget spinner.
attention to him. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't mean that literally you forget how to watch a movie. But when you say you're zoned into a film, like I totally didn't want to do anything else. I didn't want to pick up my phone. That's a big deal, man. If I don't want to pick up my phone when I'm watching a movie, I feel like I'm there with him,
even to look something up.
What a sad day.
What
a sad day. That's when entertainment has actually died. It's like, hey, if something makes me want to put down my phone, I'll that's a good piece of entertainment.
But I say it again. Like all the characters, like there's very few movies nowadays where you look at all, like even from Mr. Potter, that you fucking hate him but you like them.
But I'll put it to you this way. This is a time when an actor could play several different roles and be several different people because they acted really well. You'll watch Rear Window, and I will encourage you to watch, after watching this, watch Vertigo. His character in Vertigo is completely different than what his character in this is. There's a movie called Harvey that he does. It's about an invisible rabbit that's his imaginary friend. It's fucking amazing. Watch it. It's called Harvey. But all of these characters that he plays, you literally hang on every word. And, Grace Kelly, same thing. These are actors that speak with their faces and speak with their voices, fair enough. But you know what I mean? Like, you need to be watching them to see all of this, to get the tone of the film, to get the tone of the scene.
Like all these League of Actors, back then, you had to be able to act to be an actor. Like now, did you see every fucking Tom, Dick, and Harry acting? These were guys, man, that were just like fucking in another fucking league of acting. I call it old Hollywood.
Old wood.
Yeah. Well,
so
whatever.
At this point, we come to George being like, you know what, screw it, I'm gonna go off and head off to the party. I'm gonna head off to the graduation. I'm gonna sitting around here, feeling sorry for myself, basically. So he heads off to the graduation, and everybody knows him. Again, he's known throughout the land. I think one of his old friends comes up to him, and this is cool. So small little things like this in films is what I admire, and that they don't do it often enough anymore because everything is over explained. So you watch a film like this, the guy that does the ee-yaw, such an annoying thing in a film, and you're like, oh god, I hate that guy. Every time he does it, it's like, oh, I remember that guy, because he's basically not in the film, and at the very end he saves the day. I don't know if you remember, but and that ee-yaw is a part of it, and you're like, what a cool little. Again, we're kind of into another thread. We're knitting a jumper here, people. In film terms, there's a lot of things going on. There's a lot of intertwining things, but it's introduced to you in different ways at different times. There's flashbacks. There's cool little scenes up in the sky. There's a character being introduced by these common tropes that they do. So you're kind of taken along with the story in a natural way. You find out that this guy is basically a big timer, and he's plenty of go get him in a lot of spunk is what they would say in the day.
Yeah.
Lot of jizz in that guy's balls, huh? No?
Moxie.
Am I using that term right? Moxie. You got a lot of moxie. Chutzpah.
Got a lot of moxie, kid. You got a lot of moxie. Hey.
Moxie. Hey, kid, you got a lot of moxie. What is moxie? I don't know, but it sounds delicious. So we get the slutty one coming along again and going, hey, George!
Don't call her the slutty one, please.
She's the slutty one because at the end, she's a bit of a hooker. That's what I'm saying.
Call her the adventurous girl.
The adventurous girl!
Oh,
That's just another term for slut. Or, what do they call them on Twitch? A thought. She's a total thought. That hoe over there. No, okay, she's a respectable lady of the time. Actually, in fairness, compared to girls nowadays, yeah, she's like prude. She's totally a frigid. Do people still say that nowadays? Frigid?
Jamie, no.
So we get a lovely introduction to Mary. Hey, Mary! I love the way he says Mary. Is it a coincidence that Mary and it's Merry Christmas? No? Mary?
Does he say Mary?
No, it's her name. Mary.
I know.
But the way he says it sounds like Mary. Hi, Mary. No? Maybe that's just...
That was Latin.
What do you want, Jamie?
What do you want? That's a little bit like... that's Humphrey Bogart. Hey, you want the moon?
No. Is it?
Not yeah. Well, I don't know any of the lines.
Anyway.
I actually don't like Casablanca.
Never seen it.
Yeah, well, we will never have to watch that film. But there is another film with Humphrey Bogart in it that we will be watching. So we get the introduction to Mary, and they get lovingly introduced by I think it's like, hey, George, I want you to introduce you to my cousin.
Sister. Yeah.
No, it's his cousin, isn't it, or something like that?
Cousin,
And
okay.
there's a guy standing there, and he's like, so like talking. What's he talking about? Something nerdy to her, and she's like looking off at the distance, be like, I don't fucking care.
Do you have that guy on screen? Does anybody know who that guy is?
No, like the little nerdy guy. Let me see if I can get him up on
Do you
screen.
know who he is?
No,
Is
who
that?
is that?
Do you have
Ron Howard?
a shot of him?
No, I don't have it. Hang on a second. Let me see if I can get a shot of him.
It looks like Jerry Lewis.
Nope.
Oh,
Okay.
let me see if I can get a shot of him.
There he is.
Oh, God, she's a beautiful lady. So this is like old school beauty. Look at those cheekbones. Mwah! Gorgeous. This guy on the right, basically, and he's all the freckles. Who is that?
That's the guy I'm talking about. I can't see if you have it up yet. Sorry, it's fine.
Yeah,
Does he look familiar to anyone?
He kind of does, I guess. Who is it?
Alfalfa.
Oh, really? The guy that
Yeah.
looks...
The
Ah!
original Little Rascals.
Holy
The original...
shit.
And that's not really that far off, to be honest with you. What was that, like 1930s or something like that?
Yeah.
Little Rascals.
And he said the
With the-
best line ever.
With the
The
little...
man
With
says,
the thing on his
Yeah.
hair?
yeah.
Yeah.
That guy? Yeah! That's
That's
cool.
the
Hey,
guy.
Says to him,
nice little
You
trivia
wanna be
knowledge. I didn't know that.
says, hey, shh.
Chipper!
Brilliant.
So, the guy on the left is wanted to introduce George to Mary, and they've already kind of been introduced for years, but Mary's been off, I don't know, doing something somewhere else, I guess. She went to a different college, I think. And now she's back in town, sowing them seeds of social. Instantly, they hit it off. They're basically in each other's arms, and it's a lovely little moment for them to do a little bit of slow dance that turns into, hey everybody, we're going to have to do the Charleston. I love the Charleston.
So do
I think that dance, I tried to do it, go to dancing class for like a number of weeks, and not only do I have two left feet, I also have two left feet that somebody else owns, so I can't even control them. And they're in shoes that are backwards, and the floor is all wobbly. You know what? I'm kind of one of those dancers that does a bit of a dance and then thinks about the dance, and I'm like, oh no, I'm screwing myself up. I overthink it.
Jesus, Jamie.
No, have you ever tried to dance, Darren?
I'll teach you how to dance.
Will you?
I got you.
Oh, thanks, bro.
Sort you out.
I
I didn't say dance good, but I'll teach you to dance.
can teach you to dance. Oh, you can teach me to do the Macarena.
Let's do it.
Hey, Macarena. Hi.
So
There's
they
a
fall in
part
the pool.
where, no, it's just before that part where George and Mary are dancing, doing the jives and stuff like that, and doing the hokey pokey, and they twirled around. And then a guy comes out of nowhere and is like, hey, I hear that. So to Alfalfa, hey, so George, you notice that there's a pool under here? And he's like, yeah, what of it? Hey, do you know that George is dancing with Mary right on the kind of lip of that pool? He's like, yeah. He's like, and do you know the button for that to open it is right over there? And I have the key. I'm like, what the fuck is this guy's problem? He's like clearly wanted to just, like, what I like about it is he doesn't come off as a bully. He just comes off as someone going, oh, this is going to be hilarious to watch. Yeah. Just a bit of fun. Could cause someone to probably get a concussion and fall in and die, but it's early 1940s. There's no health and safety or anything. I'm surprised they have a key to lock the thing. There's not just a big button you can press.
Like I was when they were saying like the pool is underneath your man says to them, thanks for building us a pool underneath the
yeah.
Saves
they say that.
I was like, I didn't realize they had pools under the gym.
Not after this event.
Yeah, that's probably when they died out. That place still exists, but yeah, I'd say it died out after that movie.
Now there's just punji sticks underneath. Open at your own peril. Ah! It's like a Mortal Kombat stage.
Yeah.
Just jump down onto it. So the pool opens up, but George and Mary are just so compatible with each other that they don't even notice the pool opening up, and nobody cares to warn them. They're just so delighted with the dancing that's going on. They're dancing on the precipice, dun, 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 and everybody's like, yeah! And George is like, wow, I think they like us. Better not look behind us because that'll be really troubling. And then everybody has a good old time. You know, there's no ill will. Everybody has fun, and the dancing is fabulous. They basically fall in the pool, and everybody has a good old time. But what I like is that just when everybody jumps in, the guy that gave Alfalfa the key then just looks at him and goes, and they both just jump in the pool and afterwards. So you can tell.
I seem to think that was your man's plan all along. He was just going to open the pool. But he just saw this guy pining and went, hey, now I got motive. I don't have to be the one to turn the key, but this is what I wanted all along.
You know he's going to be like graduating to be a businessman. It's like the end of Grease, and it's like, and this guy grew up to be Donald Trump. And this is a little Donald Trump. And this boy grew up to be the real Alfalfa. I've never seen... You know what alfalfa is? Is it like a herb?
It's a wheat, sort of a grass.
Wheatgrass? Alfalfa. Darren, do you have anything to add on the wheatgrass? Wheatgrass?
No, I'll take away the grass. The weed I'm okay with.
You're okay with the wheat?
Okay with the weed, dude. Not the grass, though.
No wheatgrass. Cool. So, we get on to the near end of Act 1. We've summed up George in a gorgeous way. We've only shown him in good light at this point. Nothing's going to get this guy down. The lovely moon sequence that everybody kind of parodies effectively.
This
wonderfully
is my
done.
From the start of this to where he goes off in the end of the scene, this whole scene is... Everything about it is fucking beautifully written, is funny, it's just weird, but it's so good, it's so fun. Like, nowhere in this world should James be...
Stop
Jimmy
calling
be
him James, you're freaking me out. It's Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Stewart should never ever sing, but it works for this because he's not like, as I said to you before, if I never seen him before and then seen...
Are you talking about where they're going, by the moonlight, by the moon of the...
But it works
of the moon.
so well.
They're supposed to be drunk, though, right?
No.
Oh.
No.
Yeah,
they're drunk on love, right?
Oh, okay.
They're under 21, Derry. Jesus.
Shocking.
Shocking.
But he says to her, like, you were like 17.
Yeah, you were like, but that means you were 17 last year. Well done, Jimmy. And you're going to university, are you? Tell me about that one. So they have a little bit of a play, and there's a part where the guy, so Jimmy Stewart is obviously trying to buck up the courage to kiss her. Yeah. There's a guy in the on his porch listening in, and he basically, eventually he goes, will you just shut up and damn well kiss her? And he's like, well, I didn't tell you to listen on in. He's like, youth is wasted on the young. And he kind of walks in.
And I love that whole sequence as well, because I think that's really authentic as well. Because when you're a teenager, you're just walking along in a couple talking absolute shite. Yes. And you just know, like, older people are like, you're idiots. You're just idiots, like.
It's one of those things where you're like, when you get older, you can hear teenagers talk, and you're like,
you're idiots.
I hope I never said those things when I was that age. Jesus Christ.
We definitely did.
We were probably worse back then.
No record. Sorry, young people of today.
Before smartphones.
We get a little bit of sexual play at this point. After the moon bit, we kind of see that Mary has this kind of dressing gown on because all of her clothes are soaked, and Jimmy Stewart stands on like the tail of the the little string basically of the
robe.
Robe.
Yeah.
And it nearly falls off. And she's like, train. And then there's all a little bit of flirtiness going on there. Sorry, this is where the old man basically is like, will you just kiss her? And then we get the lovely moon bit. What a gorgeous moment. And I think it's like it's over and done with before you even realize it. Did you get that? Like, it was like really quick for such an iconic moment. It's
slapped him in the face. Like,
it's done really well.
It's just really nice little moments.
Exactly.
But this is where Forrest Gump got the whole throwing rocks through windows from this movie as well.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that's where I got the whole scene. That's why I know there's another in Forrest Gump, but it was such an iconic picture of them standing in front of the house and throwing stones that it was not written for Forrest Gump from this, but they use inspiration from it.
Well, I believe that's not until... Yeah, so they do that rock throwing, and that's the house that they basically end up living in. They're making wishes, effectively. And he wishes to go off traveling, and then she wishes for something that you don't find out until later, basically. But she gets in the nude then. She gets in the nude and hides the shrubbery. And he's like, wow, situation like this comes along once in a lifetime, basically. You know,
I'll call the cops. Well, the cops are down that way. I'll call your mother. Well, my mother's up the block.
Yeah. Because maybe I should sell tickets.
I was like, where is this coming from? Oh my God.
Right? It is one of those kind of cool moments that you think, wow, I think it's one of those when we think people in the past were basically barbarians that were like prudes and had no sense of, innuendo or anything. But at the end of the day, they were pretty good. They stuck it in there. And then flash forward after that.
No pun intended.
Oh. To the bank. Or what I should say is the building society. And I think it's losing money effectively. And all of the shareholders we've skipped a very important part.
I was going to say the dad, isn't it?
Yeah.
The dad, so he gets word. So after she gets all naked and everything, the taxi driver, Bert, I think Bert is the taxi driver, or is Ernie the taxi driver?
Ernie, I think, isn't it?
Ernie's taxi driver.
Ernie's the taxi driver. So Ernie pulls up and says, hey, quickly, your father. And then it turns out that he's had a stroke. So the dad has had a stroke, and that means that, being the responsible person he is,
he has to
George has to step on in and take over the building society. It is a building society. What's the other name that they call for it?
Is it Buildings and Bonds? Is that what it's called?
It's the name of the Buildings and Bonds.
Loans.
Bonds and loans, but it's basically like a building society.
Same thing.
And he's like, okay, I'm going to stay here for like 4 years until my brother comes back. I'm sending him to college or to university. And when he comes back, he's going to take over. And then I'll go off and have my trip. It turns out that all of the shareholders at this point basically are saying that, no, we're going to turn over the business to Potter. Actually, I should change the scene. Scene change. Act 2. So, we find out that Potter is basically trying to buy all of the shares of the Building Society to close it down. He wants not only to take it away from everybody or make it corrupt like the bank is effectively, but he wants to shut it down and close everybody's mortgages, foreclose on people effectively. I think he gave one example of, I think it was Ernie, asking for a loan for a mortgage to build a house that he was, not able to pay back legitimately. And he was like, you need to foreclose on them. You need to get your money back. How evil. So we get to the point where George is just like, look, I'm going. I don't give a shit. I'm going to be leaving. I have my suitcase full. I've been stopped so many times before.
Just like
nothing's going to happen.
at the door, and I'm like, and then your man just says that just one little phrase that just pisses him off. He's like, right, again, this scene, he doesn't just like fuck, Jimmy Stewart doesn't just like go off on one. His dialogue here fucking rises perfectly to where you see him getting upset. Ah, Jamie, sorry, this guy is just a fucking. I thank you so much for letting me watch this movie because I love this guy acting now. Fucking
He has
love
some
him.
really good tension here. That's just
Yes.
it's very subtle, but it's subtle but obvious in a weird way.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
what I like about this as well is that it's preachy without being preachy. You know, that kind of way. It has a message that it's character driven. You know, that's what all of these messages nowadays that are put into films about, you know, being a nice person or whatever way you want to be construed about that, is that it just pops in there. Let's plop in people being nice, or telling people to be nice for no apparent reason. It makes as much sense as like G.I. Joe telling you not to take drugs. It's like those two things don't really come into my mind at the same time. You know, so when they force this preachy attitude onto characters, it just feels false and two-dimensional. But when a character like this is basically expressing what you've already gone through, you know, how far are we into it at this point? What, we're only a half an hour into the film and you're already feeling that gut-wrenching kind of, yeah, George is right, he should be standing up for the town, you know, damn right, you know, fuck Potter. And Potter's only been in like 2 scenes. But you know, what I like, and I keep on saying it until it's not relevant anymore, is that the stereotypes, when done properly in these films, are perfect. I didn't need to see Potter's backstory. I didn't need to see the dad sitting there giving out loans every single day and the people coming up and going, oh, I don't have, Mr. Bailey, I don't have enough money to feed my children. It's like all implied because you just get the sense of these characters.
I do see when he's a child, when George Bailey's a child, he walks up, and I noticed because I was like, wow, like when he walks up, he pushes Potter. Like he walks up and says,
Yeah,
because your man's obviously, yeah. I was like, wow. I said, and then his father comes, because it's funny because he, just for that split second, he breaks out of a child, becomes like a man, and then his father brings him aside and explains to him, and he becomes a child again. Like,
well, what's cool about this is that, like, you see, I think there's about 3 or 4 times when George confronts Mr. Potter and is pissed off with him, and that's what makes one of the scenes later on in the film even more, yeah, like it makes more of an impact later on when it actually happens. So it turns out that the board will only vote not to dissolve the buildings and loan if George is the one to take up the chairman of the business, basically. It is a dilemma. Another dilemma is it's like a moral, like, it's not right or wrong. It's, you know, he isn't making a choice about what's right and what's wrong. It's a choice of what's moral and what's not moral. Am I going to leave all of these people get their mortgages snatched away by Potter, or am I going to like and basically head off and do the thing that I've always wanted to do in my life, or am I going to stay here and make sure at the very least the place survives? You know, for those 4 years that my brother's not here, at least I'll be able to get out of this place when my brother's back. He thinks sillily.
But again, it's him sacrificing his hopes, and a lot of this is him sacrificing for the greater good.
And the greater good is what is, and that's what something we'll come back to. I'm gonna go and get another beer, but you talk about the crow. Do you notice the crow in this?
I did notice the crow.
I'll be back.
Is this a running theme in our picks?
He's going to do this. But no one's talking about it but him. He just is constantly bringing it up every.
I did notice the crow though. Did you pay attention to the crow?
I did, but I didn't think of it as in the crow was. It was something in the movie.
To me, the first time I saw the crow, it was like, oh, that's the angel watching. But I
didn't think anything of it. I just thought the man was like fucking animals going around. Now, what I did think with the fact that the animals are really fucking well trained was when he was talking, the crow flew at your man's arm, but Jimmy didn't actually he walked. I say I know the guy Jimmy, but when he was walking towards, He didn't stop walking as a crow flew past Melander, man. He just kept walking.
Yeah.
Crow's the greatest movie that's ever happened. Oh, sorry, Jimmy. How you doing? How are you?
Oh, sorry. Hi, guys. What were you talking about?
I was saying.
We're talking about the crow?
I thought like maybe the crow was the angel watching, but it seemed then to be the uncle's pet. So I wasn't really too sure on that.
I've always watched this film and wondered, what the hell is that? Is that the kind of quote unquote kind of vulture effectively? Is that like, because you see it in these times of strife effectively when George is going through these difficult decisions when he's an adult. It does turn out to be his uncle having this weird obsession with all these animals that could definitely have rabies, and maybe that's why like the uncle is a bit mad, is because he has a bit of rabies going on. Like he squirrels like walking up on top of him while he's asleep, and you turn like in the alternate universe basically where it turns out George was never born. It turns out he went to a mental hospital, so it just tells you a lot about this character. But it is unusual to have that like crow. Is it a crow or a raven? I think it's a crow.
It's a raven.
I thought it was a crow.
Is a raven a writing desk?
When is a raven a writing desk? What?
No. Yeah. When Poe writes on both. Ah, see.
Ah, that's it. Yeah.
Yeah, that's the unanswerable question that was answered. So George takes it upon himself basically to take over the building alone, and we then get a trip back up to the heavens to see the universe, and Clarence commenting on George's life up until that point. And it's a nice kind of drawback to what we're, again, just a reminder, this is what's happening, by the way. It's a nice little reminder about what's happening in the film. It's a catch-up without having to be, completely obvious about it effectively.
Yeah.
So we then come back to Bedford Falls at the train station, and they're waiting for the brother to come home. George is really excited the fact that finally I get to leave Bedford Falls because my brother's coming home. He's going to take over the business. I'll be gone. Nothing surprising is going to happen. There's nothing that can surprise me now at this point. So the brother comes back with a lovely wife.
A lovely wife.
George is kind of explaining. I like the way, again, just his character. He doesn't seem like a pussy or anything, that kind of way. You expect a character that gets walked all over, like quote unquote walked all over, is kind of whipped by everybody.
Yeah.
He's kind of doing things according to what he should do, not what he wants to do.
But I think that's what keeps you endeared to him. Like you're not looking at someone who is being browbeaten. You're looking at someone who is actively making the right decision.
Yes, he's a strong person,
and keeps you on his side throughout the whole movie.
It would be a very different story if George wasn't man enough to speak back or, say no to other things. Like you can see that he can stand up for himself. And in doing so, it gives him that vulnerability when he does the right thing. You're like, wow, what an even better person, because he was so strong in those situations, but yet he can be so vulnerable and say, you know what? No, I'm going to take the back seat in this situation. And then it's another time when he does it, basically. His brother comes back with a wife. Hey, by the way, I got married. And George is like, oh, right, okay, and how are you? Oh, what am I talking about? Oh, come here. And even a situation where you basically taught that, oh, that's going to be a little bit controversial. No, they're all fine with it, basically. Everybody's fine. It's still lovely. Happy families.
Yeah, but I like the fact that they didn't dwell on too much. That's what one thing I like about this movie. They don't dwell on things. They put it to you, and some stuff should be talked a little bit more about. But the fact they do just like, right, we're going to show you this now, we're going to move on. You do what you want with it. Like the whole wife thing.
What else should be talked about?
Oh God, we'll go further. When it comes to it, I'll talk about it.
Okay. So
Um,
the mother, or sorry, the wife is basically like, oh yeah, he's coming. My dad's in love with him. He got him a new job. And then George is like, oh, what? What's this about a new job? Sorry, it was probably my
my
bad
bad
ear.
ear.
See his heart sink straight away. Like
Mm-hmm.
that
Yeah.
again, Jimmy Stewart, just that little bit of emotion says so much, and you see it straight away. You're like, oh, there's his dreams again.
Yeah, what a shitty position. And it's, again, like it's the rug pulled out from under your feet again. And it's not like you don't expect this to happen, but when it does happen, it's happening in a surprising way.
Yeah,
Well, I love
You
how
know?
you see him. I love how you see him make, like we were saying, he's not that he like gets walked over. He makes these conscious decisions to do the right thing. And every time he makes a conscious decision, they don't gloss over. You see him do it. And you're like, that's what makes you again. You're like, well, fair fucking play, pal. Again,
he
like you've
never
done like,
asks for
yeah,
anything in
anything.
return,
No.
and I think that's a big build up towards the ending.
Yeah.
But
Of
at the
course.
same time, he is arrogant and he's a bit narcissistic. Like when he talks about the crappy old house, he's like, I'd never fucking live in that place. Like, that's a piece of crap. Like,
He's
he
such a
doesn't
nice guy.
have. But that's what makes him a kind of flawed character, and that's why he's actually flawed insofar as being a bit of an asshole, and you're like, oh wow, the world has done that to him. You know, these events that we've seen have done that to him. It's not he's done
Yeah.
that to himself. You actually see that his kind of downfall in a way as well, and it's
Yeah.
not thrown in your face. It's not like highlighted. It's actually told to you in a story format. Oh my god!
Yeah, like you
Shock
know he's
horror.
not an asshole.
Exactly. You're probably defending him.
You can totally understand why he's acting the way he's acting. It's like, God, this dude's been trampled on over and over and over again. I'd be feeling pretty moody as well.
Yeah, I'd be
Yeah.
having a bowl of ice cream with that one. But the repetition of how many times he's been screwed over for his one goal, and that's the big thing about it as well. It's not just his want to get away, but it's actually he wants to travel. And I like the way throughout the course of the movie, it's like he literally names different places all the time. You don't care. He doesn't care where he goes. He just wants to go. He just wants to leave. So we have a lovely party, a kind of a wedding party back at the Bailey house, and everybody's having a good old time. The mom is there. This is cool because you see the inverse of this. It's like the what in Star Trek when they go to the mirror universe and everybody's wearing a mustache, and you kind of like everybody's like the inverse of what had already been established effectively. And this happens with like the mom in this is like the nicest mom in the world. She's like small and she's like cooking all the food. I think, are they meant to be like an Italian kind of a family or something like that, or maybe not Italian, maybe like it gives that vibe, you know, big family atmosphere, like an Irish family, maybe something like that.
Bailey.
An English family sounds like an English.
I thought it was just American. I didn't think too much into it, to be honest with you.
But so we get like the exchange with the uncle.
Best scene in the movie.
Like
What a acting job. What a fucking acting job.
Hey, you and me, buddy, we're the best. And
In the right direction.
this way. Okay, this way. And I love the way when his mom comes out and George is like, okay, well, better go home. He mimics that. He does that again. I don't know. It's kind of like
the interaction between himself and the mom when he puts his arm around her and stuff. It's fucking beautiful acting again. It's so fucking good.
Yeah, that little
Trivia. I got trivia.
Oh, do tell me the trivia.
She plays his mother in about 4-5 movies. And this is the 4th time she plays.
Do you know what the names of those movies are?
The one that you mentioned a while ago.
Harvey.
No, the V one.
Vertigo.
Did I post it yesterday? No, I posted the Cary Grant one yesterday. I will be putting it up on
our Twitter.
On our
Instagram.
Instagram.
On Instagram. Follow
Beulah
Instagram, by the way.
Bondi, I think is her name. But
Yep, you're right.
she played his mother about 5 times, and this is the fourth. So the chemistry there definitely has been built up over time, I would say.
They do look like a loving mother and
I love
daughter, like a
it.
mother and son, isn't it?
It's so adorable.
You'd never get that nowadays. Like, unless someone's, like, we'll go with Spider-Man again, like Marissa Tomei's playing him in 3 movies she's playing at me. But you'd never get the same actress playing someone's mom in multiple movies nowadays. Never, ever have it.
Well, most people's mums nowadays look like they're in their 20s. So, this is like, oh, let me introduce you to my mom, and she's 60 and she bakes cookies. It's like nowadays it's like, let me introduce you to my mom, and it's like hot pants and leopard skin top, blouse, that kind of way, big hair. She's in her 60s, but she looks like 30. So George goes away, like the uncle, and he walks into town and sees the adventurous woman being chatted up by 2 men on the side of the street. How adventurous of her. Am I right, Darren?
Yeah.
Adventure.
And then
But her word when she sees him, she's talking, all of a sudden she goes, oh.
I love the guy with the mustache. We'll be right here waiting for you, baby. It's like saddest bunch of bastards ever. Imagine that. Be like, we're waiting for you, baby. Don't worry, we're not going anywhere. You can come back to us anytime.
You notice when they were talking on their own, the 2 of them, Jimmy and herself, and then when they finished the conversation, where did all the people come from?
This is the other side of it. I was like, that's a time before phones. When literally everybody was like, oh, there's an argument happening in the middle of nowhere. Oh, let's crowd around.
Right next. Yeah.
So she wanders up to George and goes, my moment to strike. So she's like, hey, George, come on, let's go for a night on the town. And he's like, yeah, let's climb a mountain and run in a field barefoot. And she was like, I don't want to run in a field barefoot. What the fuck are you talking about? So that reminds me of modern. That's modern ladies nowadays. No, that's Theresa May. Let's run in a cornfield or a wheat field. But yeah, she's just like, that's. It's kind of like the superficial world, which is what's her name? I completely forget her name. Violet. Well done, Gloria Graham. Violet is like the superficial world, and Mary is like the real world. She's even when it comes to a little bit later on, where they have the dinner in the crappy old house. It's like that's her idea. Her idea at the end saves everybody. She's the realistic, grounded person, and George is actually the fantasy one. She's the dreamer.
Yeah, but she even comes back at the end.
The one, yeah. The adventurous lady. She comes back. George then kind of wanders around. I think he's talking to his mom actually, and was like, oh yeah, that Mary was looking for you. And he was like, oh, I guess I'll go down there and see what she's up to. So he stands outside her house beating the fence with a stick. Right? Again, a time before mobile phones. It's like you can't just text somebody. You're like, what are you doing outside beating that fence with a stick? Someone's already called Mary, I think, to say that George will be over effectively.
His mother.
You've seen that Mary's drawn him this awesome picture. The George lasso the moon. I love that. It looks like a really cool drawing as well. Like, imagine someone drawing that for you, and she's like absolutely delighted with it. And this is one of those moments where I'm just like, again, as a guy, maybe it's, I just like, what an asshole. I've seen those boyfriends before.
As a girl too, that was definitely there. I had to suspend disbelief a little bit to believe that Mary was still in there with him, like, and still trying to get him to stay because, she's a strong girl and most women would have kicked him out by now. It's like, well, if you don't want to be here, just go.
Get out! But she actually forgives him a lot, basically. She's kind of like trying to make him a little bit happier, but it doesn't happen. So
it says like 50 times. Who told you I'd be over? I never told anyone I'd be over.
Yeah, I never said I'd be over here.
I think that's very much. That came across as him being very distracted.
He was very
To me.
distracted.
Yeah, but that also to me was a brilliant acting job because you can see the progression from him being a nice young fella to being a nice adult, and then he's slowly but surely. But he's not like pissed off. It's a difference. It's just he's fed up, I think, more before he gets. But like then again, that shows how good of an actor he is. The fact that he could get that progression, there's fucking levels, and he just shows it all over.
But it is a shift in the character that you've come to know. We're like again 40 minutes into the film, and it's a shift in the character that you got to know. But you can see why he's sad. And he does a good job of doing it in a way that's tempered. It's not like, okay, Jimmy, your character is sad and he's angry, and then it's just you could see, like you said, Darren, that development over that kind of course effectively. She's turned on a bit of music, the song that they were singing. He's like, what are you fucking talking about? Like, shut up. Like,
but I love when she just sings it randomly to him. She just like goes sing a lyric and he looks at her.
By the light of the moon. And he's like, what are you talking? Oh yeah, that song. Yeah, well, shut up. Ignores the picture. She's like trying to get his attention, and he's having none of it. Then the mother comes down the stairs and like, who's that down there? It's like, it's George Bailey. George Bailey? I don't want you going out with that George Bailey chap. I want you to go out with this rich guy, Sam, the guy in plastics. And then she turns around and he's like, what's he doing down there? And then he goes, he's down here making violent love to me. I love violent love making. Violent. And she just responds going like, what did she say afterwards? She's clearly like just not listening at all, going, whatever, just speak to Sam on the phone, the plastics man.
Sam is going to phone you. She ignored him.
She obviously just a cheeky bitch all the time. Like,
yeah. Cheeky bitch. What a cheeky bitch. George goes to leave, and then Mary calls him back going, oh, your good friend Sam wants to have a chat with you. And then he gets on the phone. We get the introduction of, oh, Sam, or George, yeah, that thing. That kind of little reminding bell, effectively. And he's trying to tell him to put all of his money into plastics. Which is a big thing at the time. This is actually before World War II. After World War I, plastics is kind of like it's like Bitcoin. It was the 1920s version of Bitcoin. So you find out later he doesn't take it. He actually doesn't go for the offer. But it gets him and Mary to have a little bit of an intimate moment. He sniffs her hair. Gives a little bit of sniff at hair. And
it's the weird,
and then they have
what's going on. That was the thing back then, that weird fucking hugging, kissing all over her head and stuff. Like, every actor did that. And that the whole, like, moving her head against, like, there was no, like, that was what they called passionately kissing years ago.
Right. It is like a distressing kiss thing. Like, yeah, he's kissing her. And the mother
looks like he's stabbing her to death.
Sacrilege. I love the way she's on the phone upstairs as well while they're having the conversation. She's like, Mother, get off the phone. It's a very, again, one of those passionate kisses, effectively. Rarely do you get a passionate kiss nowadays like that. If you've seen that, you'd be like, God, someone's assaulting that woman. So when we get to the part pretty much afterwards, they're married. It's just as quick as that. You might as well. The mother obviously seen them kissing was like, well, I better get the wedding arrangement sorted.
That cut I found a little bit weird. I mean, I didn't need it to be all explained to me or anything, but it went from like her accepting that her accepting that he can be an asshole sometimes to them being married. Maybe.
I think it's at the time as well. like when there wasn't that much mystery about who you're going to get married to. You know, you're pretty much going to get married to the person in your hometown. And as soon as you've seen how they were together at the dance, I think the audience has already presumed the other girl is not going to be the one he goes with.
Up to that, sure. It was the whole movie is built up to it, and it was just part. I think everyone's accepted it. If it didn't happen, there would have been something wrong.
It's the nowadays equivalent of having the not gays. You know, the not gays? Did you ever hear the not gays?
Yes.
Where Bill and Ted, you know, they have the not gays where they have to have girlfriends, even though the girlfriends don't do anything. You have to, because two guys on a screen together, you know, our modern interpretation of films, or maybe back in the 90s more so, or, you know, the 80s or whatever, you just thought, wow, there's some pretty good friends up there. I wonder if they have girlfriends. So it was like that equivalent where back in the day where you seen a love interest and a boy together, you're like, okay, well, they're going to get married, obviously, because, you know, they ain't looking anywhere else. And all the other ladies are sluts. Or adventurous, sorry.
Yeah.
Adventurous ladies. Indiana Jones ladies. So they get married, and we are introduced within that scene of happiness. Oh, by the way, there's a financial crash. And this is the, what do they call it? The stock market crash, basically.
There's a run on the bank.
And everybody's basically, at this time, everybody's running to the banks to get all their money out. And we seen it. We actually saw something like that during the recession. People hanging outside of all of these banks, especially over in the UK, literally lines of people being like, yeah, I want to withdraw all of my money now, please. And
that was when NatWest was rumoured to crash or something, wasn't it? I think it was NatWest.
Yeah, and what's that? Yeah. Northern Rock?
Yeah,
that was
sorry.
Bank. So what is basically, what happens in these situations for a financial crash, it's a snowball effect. So once people get scared that the banks are going to lose their money effectively because they've invested so much, the people go to withdraw the money, but then the bank has less money, and then it goes ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba-ba, and then the bank is gone. So that's what was basically happening at this time. And we see that George has $2,000 in solid cash to go off and actually finally get his world trip with his gorgeous wife Mary. And even that he can't even do. It's like if he had like left like 2 hours beforehand, maybe it would have been fine. But nope, he has to do the right thing. And Mary's like, no, please don't get out of the cab. Stop doing the right thing.
Sorry, I thought you'd skipped ahead, but yeah, I was going to say that it's actually this time it was Mary kind of preempting and making that decision for him at the end of it all.
There is that kind of capstone. That's where you think they should have gotten married. Absolutely, they're right for each other. You know, that kind of way.
She gets him. Like, she knows he wants to do this, but you know he'd be torn. So she's just like, I'm just going to make this decision and give the money.
Well, it's not even that. It's, I think she also feels that way. You know, it's not like she's doing that. Like the contrast between this and Christmas, before Christmas, Sally isn't rescuing Santa, or Sally isn't doing things in the movie to help Jack. She's doing things to basically obstruct him and to fix things that she thinks are wrong. Whereas in this film, they're kind of like on the same. They're on the same level, morality-wise. It's just that Mary doesn't have these moral callings in her life, effectively.
Yeah.
You know, it's just George has these things. Everybody else has their own stuff to deal with, but this is George's story. But you feel like if Mary was in the same position, she would do the same thing. You know, that kind of way. Whereas the other one, Violet, wouldn't. You know, she'd just be like, no, I want to go off and spend the money. So that's your kind of comparison given to you without having that explained, basically. So the financial crash has happened. We see the bird again. We see that raven again. So again, this is kind of a bad omen sign. You know, it is a kind of a weird one. I've never really looked into it. If anybody knows about it, do feel free to comment and mention it. But why is that crow there? Who knows? I know it's because the uncle loves all the weird birds and squirrels and everything. But why? Why is it there at that particular moment and on other moments? It's a bit of an unusual one. So we find out that Potter, the banker, is fully aware of this crash, and he's like, "Yep, I'm going to lose a buttload of money." But then the way that people worked then was, if you were so rich that you could take the financial hit and still have enough money, you could buy up all of the companies. If you think about it, because all the stocks drop, everybody's stock reduces down to fuck all, and then you still have money enough to buy up all of those companies that by the time the economy starts growing again, you literally own everything. Whoop. Oh no, my beer. Darren?
I was actually interested in what you were saying. The stock drops like Jamie's beer.
Like my beer.
So it essentially is like what Potter has probably built his whole career on.
Well, he's slimy. Again, you get another example of him just being this slimy banker type, effectively.
Yeah.
So
like Mary Poppins.
Mary Poppins is a little bit different because the dad in that was actually a nice person. He was just like completely.
No, I'm not talking about the dad. I'm talking about like the other bankers trying to take the money off and trying to make
No,
him.
but at the end they learn to fly a kite and they're fine. Let's fly a kite. The Potter doesn't have a kite at the end. Potter is like an asshole. Actually, he takes that money and nothing ever bad happens to him. He's actually money. He's quids up. Technically, he gets away scot-free. No, nothing bad happens to him. He's fine. So Potter basically is blackmailing George, and he's saying, if your building and loan closes before 6 p.m., that's it. It's gone. It's dissolved.
Yeah.
And Potter is effectively buying up all of the stock. And he's saying, okay, what you do is you tell all of the people that are coming to you to get their money to come to me, and I'll buy all their shares for 50 cents on the dollar, which is like half, effectively, of all the shares. So he would own the building and loan effectively, because that's the way it works with the building society. You're effectively buying shares into the company, isn't it?
Yeah.
So George is like, okay, I'm stuck in a rock and a hard place. What am I going to do? And then everybody rushes in and decides to take their money out. What assholes. I just want to say that. That guy at the start is like, I have $242 and I want to take out $242. And I'm like, what a bastard.
But you can kind of see it because that's what everyone else in the whole like city or town or whatever is doing. So he's as afraid as everyone else.
But it's this herd mentality, you just.
Oh no, absolutely. I'm not saying he's right, but I see where he's coming from.
Yeah, and then your one says, "What do you really need?" Well, I need $150. No, what do you need to survive? I'll take $20. Such a drastic change. And then your one says,
"I love that part. I need $17.50. Oh, give her a kiss." But you find out that Mary basically offers up the $2,000 that they were going to use for their honeymoon as collateral for paying everybody off.
Yeah. I didn't get that when I saw it first. I didn't. I was wondering, where the fuck did he get the $2,000? I thought he just had it, because I know he had it on him.
Thanks, Clarence.
Yeah, but then I saw when he went back to the place and she had all the stuff up on the walls. Okay, she had a plan. Okay.
Yeah. So you're kind of like, they were kind of meant to be, basically.
Yeah.
There is a very heartwarming speech at this part, and I love it, because he's saying, basically, I can't give you your money, because your money is in his house, and his money is in his house. And remember that renovation you did on your house? That's his money over there. So it's this kind of like, I'm here to facilitate the reorder of the money. I'm here to help you guys. I'm not here to charge you. I'm not here to, this isn't a business. It's a kind of a necessity within society. And I've stood up to the plate to do that. Can you not respect that effectively? So that's when you get people dropping off where they're like, oh yeah, okay, well, you know what? I just need like my $17.50. They managed to close with having $2, and they put
a daddy dollar.
a mummy dollar and a daddy dollar. They put them in a little thing, and they put it in the safe for them to procreate, have little baby dollars, little cents. Mary then decides that it would be a great idea to have their own little honeymoon. And Burton, Ernie, and all the gang decide to chip in and effectively help Mary set up a dinner in the old abandoned house that they threw the stones at, and they call it the bridal suite. Jimmy Stewart is kind of shocked effectively, and I love. There's a part in it where like there's water dropping down from the ceiling, and he steps around it. Did you notice that? Where he's like dropping and he steps around. It's just those small little things in a film that make the character and the film effectively. I really enjoyed that part.
That little sense of realism.
Small little thing. And again, these old films, you kind of only get to really see it in the coloured version, I guess. But this is one thing that I do like about the coloured version, is that you get to see the blooms of the hair, you know, that super colorified, what would you call it? The saturation is turned up to 11 basically on it. And they start singing outside. Bert and Ernie start singing outside, and then they have like a little what would you call it? Like a
moment.
Yeah, like a Three Stooges moment where actually there's
This
a really
Monday.
cool part. There's a really fun part in it where Jimmy Stewart gets brought into the house, and
And leans back.
Arnie leans back and his hat tips up,
Yeah.
and then Jimmy Stewart nods, and then the water comes down, and then he comes. I was like, that is fucking magical. That's magical. You know, whether it was something ad-libbed or not, that scene was just like, yes. You don't get that's why you need a physical set, ladies and gentlemen. That's why you need your actors on a physical set, because they interact with the set. You can't do that in a CGI fucking green screen room where you can't lean on things. You know, there's no room for improv or ad-lib because it's all nothing.
But there's no dialogue. There was very little dialogue in the whole scene. And like it was all just movement. Like even when he's walking around, and even when he's looking at the stairs and he's looking, you know, you can see the posters on the walls. It just fucking everything added to that. It was fucking like obviously when the scene started when your man walked, when his hat tipped up, I was like, that's fucking amazing.
But
so
I like that little bit of slapstick comedy. You know, it's that's effectively what it is. It's like it's like a Marx Brother or whatever. So we now get the kind of the progression of George staying now with the building society. You know, we kind of understand that he's never going to go and travel effectively, but he's created a whole estate of homes for people. And one of the homes that he's created is for Mr. Martini, which is like this Italian immigrant kind of family, and they're welcoming them to their new home with, what is it, wine, bread, and salt. So you can see that
he got in. You know, it's funny because I'd say basically when the kids got in and all of a sudden the goat jumped in, I was like, a fucking goat. But you see how quickly Jimmy Cagney jumped to get the goat's fucking horns because it was going to poke the fucking child.
Jimmy Stewart.
Jimmy Cagney. Fucking Jimmy Cagney.
You'll never catch me, coppers!
It was, but Yeah, I was watching that. I had
I
to
thought
check
the
that
same
bit
thing,
out.
but I thought it was Donna Reed. I thought it was Mary that grabbed the horns first. Because that's what struck me first.
No, Jimmy
Because she was
went.
holding the baby.
You guys are
Yeah, he
such
was like,
parents.
Jimmy went. He went to grab the horn. One grabbed, and she pulled him. Ah, Jamie, Jesus!
That's all. I
Someone
don't
went to
care
grab a
about
horn.
kids. I don't care. Well, they're all dead now, so it doesn't matter. So we realize that Jimmy Stewart is doing even above and beyond what his dad was able to do. Created a whole estate full of people that are now paying their own mortgage for themselves, and probably they don't have the money to stay in these houses, but he's still going out of his way to do so. Um, this financial guy comes in to Mr. Potter, is like, I've been warning you for years. This Bailey, what is it? What's the name of the estate? Like Bailey.
Any bonds and loans.
No. What's the name of the estate that they make?
Bailey Park, is it?
Oh,
Bailey something anyway.
Bailey Park.
So the Mr. Potter effectively is like, okay, everybody's leaving my rented properties to live in their own places, and I'm getting shit from it. I'm getting diddly squat. So he hatches a plan. He decides to do something about that. That doesn't really happen. That kind of lands in his lap effectively.
Yeah.
So we get the guy with this is the plastics man arrives. He's like, hey, I made shitloads of money in plastics, and you didn't sign up for it, so nah. That's the yeehaw guy. Yeehaw!
And they do it again. He does it again. But his wife does it when she's in the car with him.
Yes.
Yeah, what are you fucking doing, you weirdo?
So
But again,
Mr.
said, bring back.
So Mr. Potter invites George over, and he's like, okay, he's a force to be reckoned with now at this point. I'm going to use him instead of trying to smash him effectively. So he's like, hey, I want you to come work with the bank, and you'll be on like 45,000 a year, which is fucking crazy money at that time.
20,000 a year.
Was it 20,000 a year? Is it?
20,000, yeah.
But which is again crazy money at the time. It's like you can see now the manipulation taking hold. So all this time you can see, okay, George is probably going to come in here kicking and screaming if I try and do anything manipulative, like if I become adversarial towards him. So I'll offer him a job and I'll basically undermine him from the outset. You could see George being a little bit gullible to this,
Yeah.
and falling into the trap effectively. It's great acting again by Jimmy Stewart. The fact that you could see his like facial expressions, like calm and everything, and like getting along chummy. And as soon as he shakes Mr. Potter's hand, like he feels the greasy slime of a deal that he's made.
He wipes his hand off, sure.
That's like, I feel dirty.
Yeah, straight away. He's like, I'm gonna need about 24 hours to think about it. And then he shakes his hand. He's like, no, I'm not even gonna need 24 hours to think about it. I'm gonna need 1 hour to think about it. I was like, that's a no. So he takes the cigar and like he goes to look at it and throw it away. He's like, you know what? I'm fucking taking this. So he goes back to his lovely old wife.
He abuses everyone in the room. Like, your man, listen, that
Yes!
was me too. And
And you too!
Like, and you too.
I love that. So he goes home and he's like, he's feeling a little bit shitty. But then your one is awake and she starts singing that song. The by the light of the moon. And she reveals she's preggers. There's a bun in the oven. There's a little Jimmy on the way.
But he says is it a girl or a boy? She says, yes.
Yes.
That is the best answer to that question I've ever heard. And I'm
What-
so
what
sad
is-
I never got to use it.
So
I always said it's a baby. Or no, I got.
it's
Do
a
you know what it is?
baby.
Do you know what it is? It's a baby.
It's a baby.
It's some sort of a fetus for a human. So what happens at this part? Has a baby, And then we get to the part where he's going to, well, the oh no, wait. Yeah,
Like
we kind of
what's
get it like it's a little bit of a montage. I think
yeah, she has they have 4 kids, like
they have
Yeah,
four
all of a
kids.
sudden, yeah, she has a baby, and then all of a sudden, and then they had 3 more.
Yeah, they had 3 more, and then his brother got a medal, the Congressional Medal of Honor in
Congressional
World
Honor,
War
yeah.
II. And then George stayed at home and did rubber drives and did all this boring shit. Effectively, he didn't even get to contribute a whole lot. Um,
But it turned
and
out that because he didn't do it because of his ear, he was held back.
his ear, something he did in the benefit of somebody else, stopped him from what I bet he wanted to as well. It's like he seems
Oh,
like the
yeah.
kind of character I want to fight for my country.
Yeah.
So now it's Christmas. So we're about an hour and 15 minutes into the movie, and now we've actually only gotten to, if you want to think about it, the film.
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're only we've only gotten to this part through explaining the character, explaining the motivations, explaining the backstory, explaining how he got his wife and his brother, and all of the characters that will actually come into it on the end. The rest of the film is only about an hour long, so it's a 2-parter film. The setup of the character, and then the motivations of the character when it starts introducing this angel character. This kind of real film up until this point where real things were happening with a narration by these angels up in the sky that you don't really get to see is broken now. We're doing that Twilight Zone moment effectively. And that's a good point for me to go to the bathroom. So I'm going to go to the bathroom. Looking fabulous.
Thanks. He was on about the picture, right?
I don't know what this is. You could have been talking about me.
Stay. Sorry, just trying to balance my camera to get a better view. What part are we on? I'm trying to see the little screen.
We are. I don't know.
We're up by the brother's going to get the medal now.
Oh yeah, he has the fucking papers, don't he?
So like, the heck? I can't even remember which point this is.
Yeah, he's going around giving everyone the papers. He said, "Tell everyone to read the headlines."
Oh, he collects the newspapers from the.
Yeah.
Hi,
back again. So
and we're back.
Yeah, we're getting to the point where now it's Christmas time and everybody got to pay up for the year, I imagine. The uncle
goes to the bank.
Well, we get the setup that this bank inspector, this audit guy is coming along, and George is not too plussed to see him there anyway. So the uncle goes into the bank, has about $8,000 in solid cash.
$8,000.
$8,000. $8,000. And he meets Mr. Potter in the bank. He's having a chat about the brother getting the Congressional Medal, I believe. And the uncle basically just puts the $8,000 in the newspaper and then slaps Mr. Potter with the newspaper. And he goes, "Yeah, you stupid fool." Ha 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 ha. Mr. Potter is angry and pissed off, and he goes into his back room and opens up the newspaper. He's like, "I have $8,000. He's like, "I have all this money." So he goes to peer outside the door to see the uncle going up to the teller, and the teller's like, "Yeah, normally you kind of give something to me at this point." And he's like, "Yeah, oh, it's in my jacket." And he's like, "Oh, it's not in my jacket." And he starts rushing around the place, frantically looking for the money. The adventurous lady walks into George, and she's like, "I want to escape. I want to break out of this town." And he's like, "Yeah, I kind of know the feeling." And gives her some money. So it's one of those small little things as well. I like that. you know, it's not really this really isn't integral to the plot effectively, but it's a character that's there that sustains the narrative. If you know, it's like a
Yeah,
girder
yeah.
beam, the scaffolding.
Again, it shows that he's a good guy, and that's just a small little bit that he's always doing his bit for society.
Well, it's not even for society. It's like he does stuff selfishly and doesn't look for anything in return. Like she's technically wanted to exploit George because he's a good-looking, popular guy, not for anything else, not for his personality. You know that
She
was
wanted the D, because she wanted.
she wants the D. She wants the D. Who wouldn't? Jimmy Stewart. Oof,
Yeah,
what a
give me
man.
the Jimmy D.
The Jimmy D. So the uncle rushes back and is like, I lost the money. I've lost all of our money, by the way. We're fucking gone. And Jimmy's like, okay, or George is going to be like, okay, we're going to be put in prison for this, and we'll get bankrupt and run throughout the whole entire town. It's not going to be a fun time, so let's retrace our steps. So the uncle starts having a bit of a cry, and he's like, I have no idea where I put the money. I'm so sorry. And George goes home. Bit of a broken man, in fairness.
Yeah, but
I like the way.
this is good acting. I have to say, from where he's like trying to just be calm and help him, and all of a sudden he fucking loses it. And I was like, to be able to go from calm to fucking that is fucking brilliant. That's
Well,
where
I
you
like.
really see his. Go on, go on,
I
sorry, go
like.
on.
Well, I was just about to say I like the way they make him look older by putting those silver wings in his hair.
Yes.
You know, he actually does look a little bit older with them on. He looks aged, you know, and again, that's like half acting, half makeup.
Yeah,
You know, he looks weathered because of just his brow and his demeanor and everything. And holy
A little
shit,
bit of shadow and
yeah, it's great. You know, the profession of acting has lost that to CGI.
yes, yes, yes.
Um, you know, even in things like Star Trek, the Next Generation, there was still a lot of makeup and a lot of plastic and stuff like that, but you still got to hunched over. You still got to look old and everything. Nowadays, you can just basically stick someone's face on an old person and just be like, "Yep, now run along there, old man." You know, acting is failed.
You can Martin Scorsese it. That's what I call it.
What's that?
You fucking Irishman.
I haven't seen it.
Yeah, don't ever, ever,
Is it
like
bad?
ever.
But I like Joe Pesci.
Oh, do you know what it was, Jamie? It was as a movie. It was. I didn't like it at all, and everyone, like people who are fans of Martin Scorsese, were like, no, it was just an excuse. Which I didn't realize it was his first time ever working with Pacino. I never knew that. But it was just It was just a final hurrah for these guys to be on screen together. That's
Before
all
they
it
all
was.
croaked it.
Yeah, but before they all died. But that's what it was. Like as a movie, it's not a good fucking movie. It's really not a good movie. Like don't get me, Joe Pesci's great, love him acting, but yeah, as a movie, but it wasn't good. It really,
He's no
and it
Jimmy
felt like
Stewart.
3 hours, 3 fucking hours. He's no Jimmy Stewart.
No Jimmy Stewart. 3 hours. That's a bit of a fucking slog, isn't it?
And you know what's funny? Anyone who loves these guys, loves the director, loves the writer, always took like people who I've talked to have saying, "Oh, it took me like a week to watch. It took me," and I watched it in one
Took me a
sitting.
week to
But
watch it.
it did, yeah, stuff. But it was like I watched it in one sitting. But it was you realize it was 3 hours. It was
Well,
the
like
longest ever.
this is a 2 hour film.
This,
Didn't feel
but
like a 2 hour
I
film.
I didn't feel it was 2 hours.
Nope, not at all. It's amazing.
Fucking brilliant.
And again, I think it's and like the really the whole entire screen time is taken up by Jimmy Stewart. There's basically
Yeah.
not a scene in it without that man in it, and he still carries the whole entire thing basically. You
that's
know, except
true.
for the child
actually.
scenes.
Like his character is in it.
Yeah, his characters effectively. But when Jimmy Stewart's in it, he plays old and young so well that
Yeah.
it's believable. It's not immersion breaking basically. You see that he kind of has this break of will and he realizes that he's probably going to go to prison for a very long time and lose all of his children. I've complained in previous a podcast before about, it's not explaining the girlfriend, let's say in The Crow, and it doesn't flesh out this character. Like, these children have only been seen in this one scene, yet the way that Jimmy Stewart, like I have up the scene where Jimmy Stewart has his son on his lap and he's basically kissing him, and he's like,
even though he's breaking down,
he looks terrified to fuck, and I'm like, wow, I don't need that kid story effectively. I don't need to see the kid acting. It's all Jimmy Stewart acting for the both of them.
Yeah, and I think you also don't need to be a parent to feel what's happening there.
Yeah, no, I still felt it. I got it. I'd be clinging on to Mouse. I'd be like,
but there was no, like, how can I say, there was no, like, added stuff into his eyes to make him cry. You can tell that was pure acting. Like,
oh yeah.
But this is, man, a fucking, everything he did in this movie, like, which I don't do anymore. I don't feel that for characters on screen. But this guy made you fucking feel so, like, you felt so bad for him. I was like, because when he's hugging on the child, you can see the child being crushed up against him. But he's
Jimmy.
In the end, I won't go too much, but in the end where your one is technically choking him as he's coming down the stairs. She's on his back, but she's hanging away. But you can tell he's been choked, but he doesn't care. He comes down, he's going. But that hug with that little boy, you could, like, it's not his son, but fuck, man.
But again, even all
that you have it's kind of heartbreaking, to be honest.
All the children in it, like the child is like tossing stuffed tinsel on top of his head, and the daughter is playing the piano, and he's getting pissed off with everybody. He's like, I don't know how to spell hallelujah. Can you quit playing that damn piano? And shut up. And Mary understandably realizes that something's probably not right here. So she urges him into the back room and is like, what the fuck's going on, Jim? What's going on, Jim? And he's like, nothing. I had a bad day. And there's a cool little bit when he's going up the stairs and he rips the knob off the banister. And he's like, I love, he's walking around, he's like, I'm sick of living in this crummy house, and the only Zuzu's upstairs because that's his daughter that's sick. She's probably sick in this drafty house, this damn, like, again, you like,
why do we have to have these kids?
Yeah, exactly. He turned around and goes, why do we have to have these damn kids? He's pretty much at the bottom of the barrel here. And it's a swift change in the character so much that you think, holy shit, a lot of pressure on this guy. So he goes up to his daughter upstairs, and she has this flower that she's smelling effectively, and some petals fall off of the flower. And she asks him to put the petals back onto the flower effectively.
Them back on.
But he puts the two petals in his ring pocket, the little pocket at the top effectively, and said, no, look, it's all stuck together now, perfectly fine. Cool little it's not really a MacGuffin, is it? It's really like a cool little tie back to reality. Later on it comes into play, those two little petals. So the teacher, I think, calls up, or the mother, Mary, calls the teacher and says, oh yeah, Zuzu's not going to be in school tomorrow because she's sick. And I think they're giving out, there's a bit of an argument going on, and Jimmy Stewart comes in and basically tears the fuck out of her. He's like, you let her go home without any clothes on. We should be blaming you for this thing. I pay my taxes for you to be a teacher. And then the husband gets on the phone. And he has an argument with the husband. He's like, hello?
Anytime you think you're man enough, come up here and we'll sort it out.
But that's the thing. He's basically just making arguments with everybody. He's just like ready to pop. he goes into the living room after the telephone argument and flips over the table with the bridge on it. Who's making that bridge? Is that Mary? Was that Mary making
No,
that bridge?
that was no, it wasn't me. It was the child's try train.
Oh, okay, right. I was like, who made that bridge? He then realizes, like, oh my god, what have I become? They're all shit scared of me. And the one at the piano was like, oh, Daddy. Um,
I actually
so,
love that line. That's just, it's so classic movie type, classic speech,
right?
dialogue. Just like, oh, Daddy.
Oh, Daddy. Well, it means something different now to me as an adult. So,
I knew we'd go there. I knew you had to say it.
Daddy. Daddy. I see. I don't have children, so again, I'm fine with saying things like that.
Oh, it means something totally different to me too, Jamie. I'm with you. I just knew you'd say it.
One hot mama. So he rushes over to Mr. Potter to strike up a deal. He's doing basically the thing that he would never have wanted to do and feels dirty doing effectively. And we know that from the previous meeting where he had that handshake, slimy handshake, and he was like, "Nope, I'm not even going to do it for profit." You know, and now he's actually having to do it to save himself, his family, and now everybody else in the town. So the only benefit he's going to get out of this is to break it even, effectively. Mr. Potter is such an asshole here. So, right, we already know at this point that he has the money. Yeah? So Mr. Potter has actually gotten the money himself. And then he goes, oh, come on, what you do with it? Gamble it away? He's like, what an asshole. He's like, oh, I have heard stories about you, running money and giving money to that adventurous lady. What are you two up to? I wonder. Oh, that's a little bit suspicious.
The whole town knows giving money to Violet.
Right? And I'm like,
the whole town.
The whole town, all 7 of them. And I'm like, holy shit, like, what an asshole. And then he's like, well, I better do my due diligence as a citizen and call the marshal. And I was like, what the fuck? It's like, all of the things in the film to this point have kind of collided. A little bit here, the money. A little bit there for Violet. A little bit there for the setup for his disgust at having to go to Mr. Potter. And it just, boom, into one final bit. And this is a great explanation of how the act system goes in films effectively. We're already near the act of Act 2, and we have our great villain and our great problem. Our characters are explained, and everybody is set to make either a great comeback or a great failure. So it's all set up perfectly. So we're kind of we're more than halfway through the film at this point. Everybody's impression. What are we going on at the moment?
Terry?
Okay.
That's what I want to hear. Passing the buck.
I was waiting for you.
I said I'd leave you off because I'm always jumping in, so.
At this point, I think this is where, like I was saying earlier about the mental health side of it coming in, this is the point where he is breaking. And all these years of giving up everything that made him, like that, all those dreams, everything that was George Bailey, and giving up so much of himself to everybody else, it's finally, it's just the straw that broke the camel's back, kind of, and he's finally breaking and saying, I can't do this anymore. I have done this my whole life, and I get shit for thanks. And I think that's where he is.
And I completely agree. It's the culmination of all of these things in a person's life. This could be anybody. You could replace all of these responsibilities for anybody's responsibilities in life, and you could say absolutely. Like you raise the point of it being a mental health topic, and Darren's just killed himself. It's a mental health, and it's dead again. I try and shy away necessarily from looking too much into the moral of the story, really, because really, if a film that is more than what? This is nearly 80 years old,
Mm.
right? If a film like this can still show someone like us nowadays the morality of things,
Yeah.
I don't like to read too deeply into what that morality is necessarily. I like to just read into that character's morality and say, wow, what a great person or a great thing to happen in general. But this has a lot to offer in terms of, like you said, mental health.
Mm.
That probably at the time, it's not a subject that would have even been considered a thing.
Not at all. I mean,
If
at
you,
the time,
not
you
for a
didn't
man
even have
either.
PTSD wasn't a thing at the time, so there's no way they were
No,
talking about
shell
general
shock.
like depression and
But you would
you
you
know.
would shell shock, which actually was a condition that doctors thought because of the effectively the vibration of shells hitting the ground repeatedly over and over again made people kind of shocked all of
Yeah,
the time. It was actually a physical thing that happened because of the falling of bombs repeatedly over and over again. But it wasn't a mental, really
it
thought of
wasn't
as a
seen as a
mental
mental issue.
disability.
Yeah,
And now this is World War II, where you have more and more soldiers coming back absolutely fucked up from the things they saw, and it was more of an abstract thing.
mm.
Darren?
I was just getting a glimpse of. I felt more and more and more sorry for him through the whole movie. Like,
Mm-hmm.
and every time you get it, like they did what they were, everything they planned to do, they got me with. Like the little glimpse of hope that you got from, you were like, oh, and then all of a sudden they take you out from under you. I'm like, fuck. So my whole process of the whole movie, Jamie, I thought what was going to happen was where I thought he was going to commit suicide, and I was like, oh no, they're
Yep.
going to, and then they're going to. I had a whole different ending to this movie completely in my head.
It's like
But I did,
Mo Sislak trying to stick his head in the oven every Christmas,
yeah,
right?
yeah. But I just think it's a terribly, it's a, how can I say, it's a
Poignant.
sad, beautiful movie.
Mm-hmm.
But I just wanted him. I wanted the guy to catch a break, and I agree. It was the first, like, years ago. You would never. There would have been, you would never heard depression. You just been told to get over
Mm.
it, hop on. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? And this movie, fuck man, I don't even know if they meant
Well,
to do it like that.
Yeah,
but that's the thing. That is the thing, and that's what I'm talking about. It's so easy for modern films nowadays to put
Yeah,
point the finger and say, "Hey, society, this is what you're doing wrong." But literally
yeah,
within 10 years, that's going to be an irrelevant point to have made because it's so
yeah.
based in that time. Whereas something like as iconic as this film, let's say, has a lot to say, even in places where it probably didn't mean to say it in the first
yes,
place.
Yeah,
exactly. Yeah,
You know,
exactly.
technically, George has not a lot to be sad about. You know, he's a great family, everybody loves him. People can get into a depression state because of not necessarily bad things in their life, but because of things that they've chosen not to do. It's like life is full of um, things that you want to fulfill. It's a lot of fulfillment, and it feels like George hasn't gotten fulfillment, even though everything is going right effectively, except for this one part. This is probably like you said, the straw that broke the camel's back. But George just hasn't had fulfillment in his life to the extent that he wants it, and now he's been crippled over effectively
like he's
by.
lost his self of a sense of person because all that adventuring and the traveling that was something that made him him. That was who he was and who he wanted to be. So it's very much his sense of person that I feel he's lost. He's suddenly realized no one is thanking me for what I've done, and I've given up myself, and for what?
But
Mm.
it's a timeless message. You know
Absolutely,
that
absolutely.
anybody can be in that situation, whether fucking phones exist and the internet exists, or whether literally
Mm.
you are um, a bank manager or basically a building society manager with complete like that person's life is completely outside of my own life. I have none of those experiences, but can
Yeah,
empathize in so many ways because all of the feelings that he has are universal,
yeah,
and it's a universal film. And again, the fact that Christmas is in there is just that like
yeah.
cherry on top. You know,
And it's just
like the
sitting
fact.
there going, he hasn't asked for help. He hasn't asked for anything back.
Mhm.
And I
Yeah,
think that's the core of it when
What
you
he's
want to
asked
relate it to a
for,
mental health issue.
what he's asked for is freedom. The
Yeah,
one thing nobody can actually give him, the one thing he has to take for himself, and he's basically forgone himself throughout the whole entirety of his life. And the only thing now trapping him is money. So this is we'll get to that in a little bit, but you know, obviously money is a big thing in this. It's like the bank versus the people's bank. You know, that building society. So we find out that George has a $15,000 life insurance policy with $500 equity, which means that it's worth fuck all when he's alive. He's like, you want me to give you $8,000 on the equity of $500 when you're alive, and yeah, sorry, I can't do that. I'm gonna have to call the police. So George basically goes off and is like, okay, I have nothing to live for at this point. Well, no, he doesn't really.
It's a throwaway line from Potter, because Potter says, "You're worth more to me dead."
Effectively, and he gets
right there.
He goes to Martini's pub, the little pub, and the bar, and Martini's like, "Hey, come in!" And the bartender's really nice and helpful, and he's like, "Oh, you're drinking too much. You better go home. I'll get you some coffee. You know, we'll call you a cab." And George is like, "No, I want to." What was that? That was my Italian accent. Was it good? It's me, Martinio.
That was a great Jamaican accent.
It was better than the Chinese accent you did a minute ago.
I didn't do a Chinese accent. What did I do a Chinese? There was no Chinese people in this.
Exactly.
So George gets a little bit sad, and he this is okay. I've seen this film so many times, and I always forget about this part. Foreshadowing in this film is done perfectly. Small little throwaway lines, like you said, Derry, are actually big plot developments in the film. He goes, Martini goes, "Oh, come on, Mr. Bailey, we gotta get you home." And then there's a random guy at the bar who goes, "Mr. Bailey? Who's Mr. Bailey?" And he comes and goes, smacks him in the face. He goes, "You ever speak my wife like that again?" And it's like, oh my God, the husband that he was speaking to like 20 minutes ago, let's say, he gets his comeuppance. Like the one indiscretion he does.
Martini calls him by name, and that's when you get the Mr. Walsh, I think is his name.
Yes, it's like the teacher's husband. I was like, oh my God, what a great setup. What a great setup, because it was literally in the mix of George's downfall. You're thinking, okay, he's just that's just something in there to show him being mad and angry and losing it a bit. But then it just comes back and bites him in the ass.
Yeah.
It's so well done. I love it.
If you're kicking a man when he's down.
Basically, like, how bad could it get? Oh shit, yeah, fucked. So George gets in his car and drives it into a tree, and decides to take a walk down on the bridge. The snow.
My granddaddy planted that tree.
The guy comes out and he's like, "My grandfather planted this tree." He's like, "Yeah, it's like a fucking tree." It's like, calm down. So the snow in this is amazing. You know, yes. the depth of snow. You know, the snow all the way in the background, and the snow in the foreground, and the snow in the middle ground. The screen is filled with snow, and I love the effect, and that's in effect itself a practical effect. You know, it's an effect that is basically a real effect, like nature. So
they didn't skip on it anyway.
They didn't. Maybe it was snowing at the time. Who knows? So he gets to meet. So Clarence shows himself, and to prevent George from jumping in the river,
he jumps in.
Clarence jumps in instead, and he goes, "Help! Help!" So George jumps in after him and rescues him. And there's like a man in a cabin that goes out and like pulls him in and gets him dried off. And the guy in the cabin like is absolutely like, absolutely regretting everything. I should definitely not have brought these two weirdos back into my cabin, because one chap is dressed in like this medieval shirt, and the other guy, like, he's talking about being an angel and everything. I love the guy's reaction, the guy in the cabin's reaction, like his facial reactions.
It's very kind of Three Stooges-y. Just like, oh.
So we find out that that Clarence is reading a book, Tom Sawyer. Anybody?
I don't know the relevance of that.
I didn't either. I think it's because it's about a man or a boy that goes through something in his life to make him a better person. I've never read it. I don't know.
I know it's like an American classic, but I don't think many people here read it.
I was thinking of a guy painting a fence, but then I was like, that's Huckleberry Finn, I think.
Yeah, that is Huckleberry Finn.
That's Huckleberry Finn. So
with N-word Jim.
N-word Jim. Okay, N-word Jim. That's right. That's more like it. So Clarence explains that he's George's guardian angel, and he's come to show him that committing suicide is probably not the best thing to do. And again, like a really heavy topic, shown, like anytime suicide is mentioned, it's in the perspective of these guardian angels. It's mentioned first at the start with the guardian angels. It's mentioned, I think, the second time with the guardian angels, and now it's mentioned with a guardian angel there. So it's never mentioned in a realistic sense if you think about it.
Yeah.
It is mentioned in this, I don't want to say lighthearted sense, but this sense that
it keeps its distance.
Exactly. It keeps its distance from reality when they mention these topics of suicide. But even when they say suicide, they're just like, yeah, do you want to commit suicide? Like, don't commit suicide.
I found that strange, actually. It did seem like a very easy topic.
Yeah.
But I wasn't expecting it to be that easy.
I think at the time, people actually looked down on, like, that's why it's called committing suicide, because it was against the law. Your man even says it here. It's like, it's against the law to commit suicide. Like, I always thought that was pretty funny, because who are you going to arrest?
Yeah.
Put him in the wagon, boys.
That was another thing. When I heard say suicide, I was like, oh, for back then even, you know what I mean? It's...
Yeah, I wouldn't be expecting it to be so.
Yeah, I didn't expect to hear someone say suicide in this movie. And when I heard him say it, I was like, where's this fucking movie going? What's he going to do to himself? I thought it was going to be a tragic ending. That's what I thought, honestly. I thought it was going to be a whole Old Yeller deal.
Old Yeller, bring him round the back of the chemical shed and blow that mother away.
I thought it was going to be a Marley and Me job here.
I've never seen that film. Oh, no, wait, the dog dies, right?
Yeah.
Sorry, I mean, I cried at Marley and Me, but this is a whole other story. Like, this is bad.
It's like sadness upon sadness. Like, at the end, you want to burst. You're just like, oh no.
I grieved after this movie this time. It took me about an hour to recover.
So I will now move us on, because I think I'm just a little bit behind now. Yeah, just about there. To Act 3. The act has changed. Now we're on Act 3. So we finally find that, actually, it's a bit weird, because he says that he's a guardian angel and that his wife had given him the shirt and that he actually died. Like, do people become guardian angels?
Well, that's a whole other topic.
Yeah.
No, that's this topic, right? So he's a guardian angel for somehow, but his wife gave him the shirt, so his wife is also up in heaven, chilling out. Maybe she's like, oh, that Clarence, he's not home for his dinner again. I bet he's down there with his mortals looking for his wings. George is like, you know what? It would be better if I had just died. And it's like, don't ever wish suicide. It's like, you know what? You're right. It'd just be better if I was never born. And I think that trope has come from this film. You know, it's like, I wish I was never born. And then they show him, like, this is what would happen if you were never born. I get a bit of a Christmas Carol vibe. Yeah, did you get that?
Yeah, I just said it. Yeah.
Yeah. Where the Ghost of Christmas Past is basically showing him these visions based on his morality. And the funny thing about this is that George is probably the nicest guy ever, and he's getting shown what would happen in those circumstances. Whereas Ebenezer Scrooge is a complete asshole, and then he's told to change his ways. So
very good point.
And it's like, why does this happen around Christmas time?
Just be grateful for what you have is what the point is.
Be grateful what you have. That's a very Irish way of looking at it. Be grateful for what you have. But I didn't get any presents this year. Be grateful. There's people in other countries, specific other countries.
I think it's a very good way of looking at it, though. You know, you could have looked at Scrooge and gone, "Oh well, bad people," you know, and then you look at this and you go, "Well, good people need this message too," you know.
It's a redemption arc for everybody, effectively, and it is a cool message to have. You know, it's that kind of like introspective message. You know, did George actually have this angel experience? You know, did Ebenezer Scrooge actually meet the Ghost of Christmas Past? You know, in these just introspective moments that these characters have, and it's framed for us as the audience that, you know, this has happened effectively.
Yeah.
So Clarence basically goes, actually, that's a great idea. Joseph, yeah, will you allow me to basically pretend like he's never been born before? And yeah, that happens. I love the way they show that it's progressed onto that part where the his cut lip is gone and the petals from Zuzu are gone. You know, those small little things, those kind of remind me of theater tropes. You know, where, you know, small little changes signify changes in the actual story, changes in the characters or whatever.
Yeah. Totally.
So George is like, I don't fucking believe you. You're talking bullshit. You're clearly some sort of a drunk. I'm going home. He goes to then go back to where his car had been parked, up against this guy's tree. And he's like, oh, where's my car gone? And the guy that, in the alternate universe where George is born, he's coming back to his house. And he's like, what are you talking about? Like, your car, I've never seen you before in my life. The guy sniffs him. I love the way he goes over to him and he sniffs him. I was waiting for him to go, what are you talking about, Robbie? Get out of here. But he gives that hint as to, it's Pottersville. And he's like, Pottersville? No, this is Bailey Park, or this is,
Bayfield Park.
whatever it is. This is a different place, but it's not
Bayfield,
Pottersville.
yeah.
No,
So,
the town. It's
the town. That's it. And the next scene that we get are basically George going into Martini's, but now it's called Nick's. And it's a roughhousing kind of place. We serve hard liquor for hard men that don't need no pansying around. He's like such a stereotypical, like...
Oh, wow, what a stereotype.
Right? We said hard liquor for hard men. George orders a double bourbon, and Clarence is ordered like this fancy cocktail drink. It's like what is it, something in a ginger ale, and then he asks him for a mulled wine. He's like, hey, we don't need no pansies coming in and adding, what was it, what did he say? Atmosphere to the place. Adding atmosphere to the place. I was like, oh wow, this is a rough tootin' pub going on here. I love it. So they get kicked out effectively. Oh, the drugstore owner comes in.
Oh yeah.
And he's like a wino. Your man Nick sprays him in the face with like a seltzer. He's like, psst. Coming in here, begging for money. It's a pretty sad scene. He's like,
yeah.
Oh yeah, he's the guy that killed that kid.
Yeah.
And now you're starting to see the repercussions. Like, you've already technically seen them before. This is the third of which and it's a cool setup basically towards like, okay, everything has changed. Like this has had a bigger impact than he obviously
that
thought.
was a drastic change because the bar was just like something. All right, you notice it obviously, but the fact that your man says he only got out of jail for that, killing that kid, and you must have, if you knew him, you must have been in jail too. I was like, holy fuck! So the child died because not that I had forgot about the child at the start of it that he said, but it was only a small minor detail to show how good he was. But obviously, then I was like, it really shows the repercussions if he wasn't a fucking alive.
Well, here's one thing that I found funny. So all of it are the repercussions. The snow stops.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then when he actually comes back, the snow starts again. So it's like, that's kind of like that saying, a butterfly flaps its wings, and then in, Japan there's a tornado or whatever, because one small thing can have an effect. It's like is the weather affected by that so much now as well? Is that? Yeah. Well, exactly. That's what I'm saying. It's like, is that what the film is trying to tell us? That even the effects that he's had have affected the weather itself, It's one small thing can have a massive effect. So they get thrown out of Nick's pub, and Mr. Santini, I think is it? Or what's the name of the drugstore owner?
Mr. Grover.
Mr. what?
Mr. Grover.
Mr. Grover. Okay, so they get kicked out, and this is kind of more explanation that, by the way, you haven't been born. The pub is now named Nick's. You don't have the petals any longer. And Jimmy Stewart still doesn't believe him. So he goes through the town, and the town now, because it's been taken over by this dirty banker capitalist, has turned into like this nightclub, like swinging ladies. There's people out in the streets. There's mobs. It looks like town on a Saturday, not in the long ago, in the before times. In the before times. So but there's like, what I love about it is the only cop you see in the whole entire place beforehand is Bert, and then now you see like all of these other cops, like these impersonal cops, like in front of all of these clubs. There's people trying to get in. You see the adventurous lady get thrown out of one of the clubs, and she's effectively like, I don't know who you are. So George gets flabbergasted and tries to get into the taxi with Ernie, and he's like, please just take me home. He's like, where do you live? He's like, you know where I live, and he gives him the address to the abandoned house. He alerts Bert.
Slapping on the side of the car and calls the cop over.
So they basically drive. Ernie drives him to. You even discover that Ernie's wife had left him as well. Like, so many things have been fucked up because of this guy not being alive. His wife left him. He lives in a crappy little shack, effectively, and the whole town's gone to ruin. So he drops him off at this abandoned house. The abandoned house, it hasn't been done up. He's looking around for his wife. Mary! And then Clarence appears. The cop and the taxi driver, so Bert and Ernie, try and wrestle George, and George manages to get away, scampers off. But
Clarence bites your man's fucking hand.
But he bites his hand. He gets thrown on the ground. Now, this is where I was talking about the special effects.
Yeah.
So when Clarence disappears, so I'm going to show it now. This is what I was talking about, the special effects before. Amazingly done. Seamless. No comment?
We can't see it in real time.
I'm watching this. I'm just watching it.
Yeah, but do you remember from the film when he disappears? Yeah.
It's the reaction from the cop is, as you said, seamless. He was like going around still looking around for it. Fucking brilliant. But like, again, that's just another thing to add to this movie that was just fucking brilliantly done.
But it's just one of those small things I thought, wow, that was done pretty fucking perfectly,
What
effectively.
did your man say? Your man saw it happen. He's like, I'm gonna get a drink.
So we're coming close to the end now. We're only about 15 minutes in, and we have a lot of things to clean up, effectively. Like, it is pretty cutting it close. So we then get him go back to his mum's house, and we find out it's a boarding house, effectively. She's a fucking cranky bitch, and she's like, I don't, there's no vacancies. I don't take in anybody that I don't know, effectively. If you have been sent from from a friend, I don't want to let you in. She starts talking. He starts going on about the husband and then the son. You find out the son's dead, obviously, because he wasn't around to save him.
Yes, Clarence, where he's.
Yeah, this is the funniest part. Okay, so Derry, what do you think of this? So, well, let's get to that in just a second. So he runs to the graveyard to find his brother's grave, and he's pretty upset. Clarence is like, you were never there to save him. He drowned in the ice, froze to death. He's dead. Sorry about you. He then asks where Mary is. Okay, and then he's like, I can't tell you. It's against the rules, effectively. And then he's like, You'll tell me. He goes, no, she's become an old maid. She works in the library. So I feel like the brother's death would have been the one that would have been at the end for him to be like, oh no, I really should be alive. But what's funny about this is it's like, it's not that like Mary's dead or Mary, something awful's happened to Mary. It's like she's become an old maid. Yes. She never got married.
She is past her prime. She is now useless to humanity. She's working in the library.
So funny. She's like, oh, like she has like this long skirt. She has like a pair of glasses. Her hair is done up. She's wearing a hat, like a little trilby. I was like, that is the funniest thing, because George clearly doesn't understand what no means, and he just overwhelms himself with like following this random woman, effectively, and starts assaulting her, and she's like screaming. He's like, we're married together, where are the children? And she's like, no, freaking out. So
she just faints, like
she faints, like wilts like a petal. But my God, the acting from Jimmy Stewart at this part, holy shit. Like, his expression, he's sweating, his hair straggly, he's like, remember the, let me see if I can bring it back just for the audience to a lovely picture of George. Remember when we first got introduced to him in the suitcase shop, smiling, and he had a little dicky bow on, and that was the picture that we had of him. Now we're looking at him in this haggard, like unshaven, unkempt. I think he's probably one of the best actors to have lived just for this film. Because look at the transformation. And all it took was a little bit of silver wings on his hair and a little bit of makeup here and there, and he's basically been destroyed as a kind of a character, a human. He then prays that he wants to be alive again, regardless of the fact of all of the problems that will bring him back. He knows that even if he has to go to jail, he's still saved more lives than he has. Like, this is the last selfless act that he could possibly do.
But I love how it's done in a split fucking second. You see him praying, and all of a sudden you see the snow falling behind him.
Right. What a great visual cue. Fantastic. And again, this is why I say that these films do such a great job, is because you can see where the transition from theater to film in the way that these films were shot, and those little tropes are carried on, because that's a great film effect, isn't it? Or a theater effect.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The scene,
So we get Bert coming along, and he's like, I've been looking all over town for you. Mary's going crazy. And he realizes that his finger's been caught, and the petals are still in his... Susan's petals! Susan's petals! So he runs through the town, and again, a very famous scene. Merry Christmas, Bags and Load! Merry Christmas, movie house! A great, lovely Christmas scene. Makes you feel joyous. Even though he's still in the shitter.
He goes up to the window of Potter's. Merry Christmas! And your man says, and a new Happy New Year to you in jail.
In jail! What an asshole he is. So he runs through the town having a jolly old time, and all the deputies, and what I love is the journalist is there as well. He's like his big camera waiting for the shot of where he's like arresting George Bailey. He runs up the stairs, and the knob on the banister comes off again, and he kisses it. He's like, yes, I'm back. And again, it reminds me of like A Christmas Carol. I think it's like, what it reminds me of is like the modern version of A Christmas Carol, you know?
Yeah.
What this should have been, or could have been written as, was, well, actually, thinking about it, as he prays on the bridge, we're into Act 4. That's how quick Act 3 is.
Yeah.
That's how quick it is. The setup to the overcoming it, and then the overcoming it is like shortened into that. Really, really quick. So, we...
Your man says to him, I have a piece of paper here for you. He says, yeah, it's for me to go to jail. Isn't it great?
I love it. He goes up and starts kissing his kids and his wife, and the wife is delighted. You find out that everybody in town has actually come together to get a load of money. And this is the happy moment of the film. It's like, throughout the whole entire film, it's been George's responsibility. It's been George's weight. He's done everything. And it's like, you don't know how much George has done for the people in the town. You know how much he's done visually, but literally down to the point of like Ernie's wife divorced him. You know, the whole town gets upended. Like there's like strip clubs effectively around town. The cops are kind of more militarized, if you want to think about it that way.
It's like he's held together the moral fabric of the town.
Exactly, just by being alive, just by being himself and doing the
guy.
things that were morally correct to do. Even the maid comes back to give a little bit of money. I love it. All of the people come back, and then he gets a call from the guy that's in plastics.
The maid says, I was saving up this money for when I got married and got a divorce. I was like, okay.
I loved it.
Amazing sense of humor.
Was it to divorce my husband if I ever got married?
So the what was it about to say? The plastics guy calls, and he's like, "Oh, by the way, it's just I got a message from the Yeehaw guy, and it's what was it, 25,000 prepared and low." So it's like everybody always had his back. Everybody always had his back. Like even down to the guy that was barely there throughout the whole entire film, a running thread had his back from the start, effectively.
And all he had to do was ask for help.
Very
if he
true.
just asked for help.
Yeah. And it's the weight of the world on top of this responsibility. Yeah. And one of the big responsibilities about having responsibility is asking for help when you know that you need it.
Yeah.
Instead of trying to fix everything yourself, effectively. So we get the end of the film. The bank guy or the marshal guy rips up the warrant. Everybody's counting the money and having a jolly, jolly good time. Tom Sawyer book drops in on the money or whatever, and it's like, it's from an old friend from Clarence. And it says, remember, no man is a failure who has friends. Thanks for the wings. And then we hear the little bell ring. And that's
Attaboy,
basically...
Clarence.
Attaboy, Clarence. Attaboy.
Yeah.
So, that's the end of our film. That's the end.
What a movie it was.
What a fantastic film.
What a movie. What a wonderful movie.
What a wonderful movie. So, in summary, I think to me, that was one of my favorite Christmas films. I thoroughly enjoyed it because Jimmy Stewart is amazing. But all of the actors are fantastic in it. The one thing that I did want to say about the film then is this film was highly criticized at the time by the government. And there was other things happening at this time too. So 1946 is when the Soviet Union started getting a little bit bigger. And it was around the 50s that they had investigations into Hollywood being communist. So the government held a special hearing, effectively, so as to interrogate all of the actors in Hollywood. Charlie Chaplin was investigated for being a communist. So was Jimmy Stewart. Because Jimmy Stewart had made this film, or was in this film, and this is, if you think about it, a socialist film. Yeah. The big banks coming in, trying to buy up everything, all of the people gathering their own money together, spreading the wealth. Jimmy Stewart had to make the next film, which is Mr. Smith Goes to Washington, which is about a civilian going to Washington and kicking out the corruption in the government, effectively. Like pro-democracy, like the little man standing up towards corruption. And yeah, it's an okay film. It's not that great. It's another Frank Capra, the guy that made this film, also made the Mr. Smith Goes to Washington. It's based on a book.
He was probably being investigated as well.
Exactly. They all were. But I think it's just funny how it worked out like that. Like, one of the greatest Christmas films, for all its love and sharing and goodwill, gets put into a light of being this communist propaganda, effectively. Like I said, it's a Christmas Carol for all the world, but instead of it being about Scrooge, it's about what's the other guy that works for Scrooge? Little Timmy's dad.
Oh no! Wait, Tiny Tim's dad.
Tiny Tim's dad. It's like if the movie was based on that character instead of it being based on Scrooge.
Okay, give me a second. I gotta find this out. He's not John Morley. Morley is the guy who Scrooge.
We're Morley and No, that's Marley and Marley. Oh, that's the Muppets Christmas Carol. Sorry, I always get those mixed up. Yeah, Michael Caine is Scrooge. Sorry, see, that's the thing. Anybody mentions the Christmas Carol, and I'm like, oh yeah, when this happened in it, and they're like, no, that's the Muppets Christmas Carol. And I'm like, oh yeah.
Bob Cratchit is his name.
Bob Cratchit, that's it. So it's like if the Christmas Carol was based on Bob Cratchit instead of Scrooge, the downtrodden guy that really wants to do the best for his family, but then gets fucked over by the end by the evil banking guy. Mr. Potter has no repercussions in this film. He gets off scot-free. He's grabbed like $8,000. What's that?
That's annoying.
Yeah, and you think, it can't be that bad. To capitalism, if he kind of gets away with it in the end. But yeah, so, thoughts on the film? Darren, you said you had something earlier you wanted to mention.
No, you went over. Yeah, man, I can put it 10 different ways, but I just fucking loved it. Like, I mean, I'm glad I watch it now, because I think I'm going to appreciate it. I would have appreciated a lot more now than I would have years ago.
Mm-hmm.
Like that's why I love. And it's going to sound so ridiculous. I've only seen a handful of movies. I'm not a big movie watcher. Like, and this is why I like watching movies like this that you're telling me to watch because I'm like now I'm getting to broaden my horizons, as it were. But like,
Yeah,
I
and
would.
that's
Well, I'll tell you one thing, man.
yeah.
And this, I mean this. This will probably be in my top favorite Christmas movie of all time. That,
Good.
like, not even kidding. Like, I will make sure to watch this. Like, if I saw this was on TV, I would make a valiant effort to sit down and watch it.
Did you
It
watch it
was
with your kids as well, or was it just you?
I watched it on my own because I was like, I didn't know what it was about. I didn't know, like, to be honest, I had no clue what it was about. I knew it was a Christmas movie, but like, obviously, I seen the stuff in the atmosphere, space, whatever, heaven, and
Yeah,
I was
yeah.
like, what has Jamie got me watching?
It's existence in the 1940s.
Yeah, yeah. But I was thinking when I saw it, I was like, this is not the same movie I thought it was. I was like, and like as I said to you, I had no clue. I totally forgot that this movie was made in black and white, and then they added color. I totally forgot all that. But obviously, because the whole movie, like, I didn't get a Christmas feel till near the end of it. Clearly, for all the snow and stuff.
Yeah.
But this movie has, without meaning to, has so many levels, so much going on in this
And
movie.
even stuff that it probably at the time didn't know was a
Yeah.
thing.
Do you know what? Just for I obviously I'm about as deep as a puddle, but just for pure acting, man, it was just fucking Jimmy acted his fucking socks off in this movie. But
I
even
agree.
every actor, the kids were all brilliant. The side cast, Potter, his brother, like I enjoyed everything in this movie. There was nothing I didn't like. And I honest to God thought when you said it's a wonderful life last week, I was like, oh great. Amazing.
Yay!
Great. And yeah, buddy, I just thought it was fucking brilliant. I thoroughly enjoyed it, and I would be something I would tell everybody to watch. Do you know why? Because it's something that's so, like, I want to say magical. It's something that's so beautiful in cinema that you don't see anymore.
Hmm.
You
Imagine
never
seeing this
see.
in the cinema. Wow.
But
Love
this
that.
is the kind of thing. If this was brought to the cinema, I'd go see it
Hmm. Hmm.
on the massive screen. I go see it at the big screen. I think everybody should watch it. I'm actually going to be saying to people now, and of course, everyone will look at me and say, "You've only seen this now."
Yeah,
You know,
probably.
but
Derry.
yeah, look, but as I said, there's not many movies, probably very little movies that are like this anymore. There's nothing like that you can.
Yep.
I have seen it in the last fuck man 20 years. Like it's all CGI now, and it's all movies now. Movies are not movies now, James. You know what I mean? They're not movies now. I don't
I
think they're
agree.
movies.
I agree. And
Yeah.
you don't have you don't have the complexity of stories that you do now. You don't have like it's all very simply shot. I can't, there's not a lot of parts in it where I thought, wow, that's a great shot. It's all done on sets. Like
Hmm.
99% of all these shots are done on
Yeah.
set. But fuck me, did the characters give that extra boom
Hmm.
for the lack of cinematography? If the cinematography was great in parts. There was some really good focused
Uh,
shots. There was some good shots with again coming down the streets and things like that. But
yeah.
overall, that was standard. What lifted it up is the people within the shots, and that really just
Yeah.
brought it out. They were very static, which I like.
Yeah.
Old school. It's not like shot, 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 shot,
But,
shot, shot, shot.
but it's very sad to see that was what was bringing cinema forward.
Hmm.
How cinema's after going now. Like, there's nothing like
Yeah.
you look at TV now. 25 years, you're not going to see the fucking Avengers like on TV and saying no, just stills like as ads on TV. Like that movie has been used in how many Christmas ads for
Hmm.
how many years? You said that movie's 80 fucking years old.
Well, yeah, 1946. So what? Yeah, about 74 years old.
Fuck me.
That's an
And
old
I'm telling you,
movie, buddy.
it's it's just beautiful. Do you know what it is at the end of the day? And I will say I'm a big fan of this. It's just a beautiful story.
It's a wonderful story. It's a wonderful
It's a
life, Darren.
wonderful story. Yeah.
So
No,
Darren,
but
Derry, what's your take?
I had seen it before, but I think like Darren said, you have to be a bit older maybe to appreciate it. Like, I don't think my kids would have got that even if I did watch it with them. They wouldn't have appreciated it. They would have been stunned by the black and white. That's about it.
Oh my God! Why is the color gone?
Is this how movies are in the olden days? That's what I would have got.
Yeah.
No, you know what? It's so rare that there's a perfect movie. I think this is one of those perfect movies.
Mm-hmm.
There's literally nothing that I can fault in this movie.
Not at all.
I tried. I tried, but I can't. Like, to me, this is 10 out of 10. This is how a movie should be.
I think it still has modern comedy effects. It still makes me laugh in parts where it needed me to laugh.
Like, when I say I grieved after the movie, it took me about an hour to calm down and just get back to level again, because I was laughing, I was crying, I was sobbing. It was a mess. Absolute mess.
Yes.
But yeah,
so
I loved it.
I'm going to give this 10. No, you know what? There's no movie that you can give it 10. 9.5 baubles. 9 baubles and kind of a crushed one with like some of the bits that the guys in Home Alone step on. 9.5 crushed and a crushed bauble. Darren, how many crushed baubles would you give that?
I'm going to give it a 10 out of 10, buddy. 10
You're going to give it a 10 out of 10. Whoa.
10 out of 10.
Whoa, Derry?
I'm absolutely a 10 out of 10, yeah.
10 out of 10. Oh my God.
I cannot fault it.
Oh my God, 10 out of 10. Ladies and gentlemen,
I don't even
this
think
is the
I'd
standard.
if I could find a fault, I don't even think I'd want to fucking say it, because I think, like you said there, I felt every emotion you can feel watching this film.
Yeah.
You know, it made me feel that warm Christmas. You know, by the end of it, I was like, I didn't know what to do with myself. I was like, oh my God, they got the money. I was like giving them claps and all at the end of it. I was like, this is fucking brilliant.
But that's a funny thing. Like, I didn't feel it as a Christmas movie. You know, this is probably isn't something that I would just watch at Christmas. This is a movie that I would just watch.
Yeah.
You can. Like Nightmare Before Christmas. You know, it's one of those all
I don't know, that's
year-round.
kind of, you have October to December with Nightmare Before Christmas. I think this movie, though, I mean, it's a timeless message, and I think it's a movie that you can watch all year round, even though it ends at Christmas. I think you can watch it all year round.
Well, there we go.
I agree.
What a fantastic, joyous film that we have around this time of year, and only 3 more days until Christmas. Technically, in the next 40 minutes, 2 more days. So I am glad that you've all stuck around today to join us watching and reviewing It's a Wonderful Life. We're going to take a little bit of a sneak peek onto Derry's art cam. We're going to do a little bit of a...
Holy shit.
Wonderful. It's a wonderful book. I can't fit it all in frame, but hang on now. Whoops. Okay. Let me know when you're back to scene, because I'm holding my camera.
No, it's fantastic. I think it's a magical. So, yeah, everybody, the finished product, because normally, you know, this is the 2-hour workout or 3-hour workout of it.
It looks like they're part of a watch, so it's timeless.
Oh,
I love it. Love it. So that'll be up on Instagram. That'll be up on our Twitter, and we'll be on Twitch again regularly every single week. Next week, we'll be here on Monday, I assume. It's going to be Monday next week at 8 p.m.
Yes.
This week was a little bit of a change, but 8 p.m. next Monday, Twitch. The video is going to be up on YouTube in parts. First off, we're going to have generally about an hour segment each, so it's easier watching. And the full video will probably be up on the end of the week. Is that right, Derry? Or
the full video goes up tomorrow. Chapters will be up Wednesday to Saturday. Oh, sorry. This week will be slightly different because there's a bit of delay. But by Saturday, all the bite-sized episodes will be up, and the full episode will be up tomorrow. Uncut, just edited.
Yeah, come along. You know, subscribe, join, show us the interest, because we would love to
show us some love.
Show us some loving. We'd love to hear your comments. We're probably going to run out of films soon that we are all suggesting. So suggest your own films. If there's films that you probably think that we would enjoy, or maybe not even enjoy, that we could tear apart.
Absolutely.
Yeah, let's do some hate films.
Yeah, let's do some hate stuff.
There's been too much love for this movie. We need something to hate.
Right.
I got a lot of those.
It's your pick next Monday. Then Darren, what's the pick for next Monday? What are we watching?
Pick for next Monday is I am going to pick a title of a movie that just encapsulates the year, because it's the last one of the year, and we're going to watch Misery.
Yay! Misery! It's been a great year, everybody, and we're going to finish it off with Misery. So watch the film.
It's a Wonderful Life to Misery, just to keep it real for everyone.
It's a balance. It's a give and take. So next week, watch Misery. We're going to be watching it throughout the week, and then we'll come back here Monday to discuss it. So thanks very much for joining us. I've been Jamie. That's been Darren over there. There's Derry and our wonderful artistic abilities. And we'll catch you next week, everybody. Bye. Oh, Merry Christmas. Merry Christmas.
Bye. Happy Christmas.